And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to Tuesday morning's OTB AM. We're here at the brand new start time of 7:30 AM, and we're going to be here at 7:30 AM for the rest of our lives. We're here until at least 9:30 this morning. If you've got anything you want to get off your chest, you can drop us a comment wherever you're watching this stream. If you're new to us, we stream this live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Periscope. The best place to get us really is on offtheball.com. If you're on that website, anytime we go live, we'll let you know with a little pop-up. And of course, you can always subscribe to all our podcasts on the OTB Podcast Network. Owen is here as ever this morning. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm celebrating...
of course you are.
Aston Villa's return to the Premier League.
How did you celebrate it?
Quiet night, you know. I'm too old for this stuff now.
It's also an early start. If you start celebrating a match that kicked off at 3 o'clock, it becomes, I don't know, a very sort of bleary-eyed 8 p.m. conclusion, which when you're up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., it's not great.
Bleary-eyed 8 p.m. conclusion is okay. I'm like, it's an amazing thing that they've done, because they were 11th around Christmas time, and it was like, well, this is no good. At least they've got a good new young manager, and he's going to play good football, who can take 12 months to build a team. And then they won 11 games in a row and got into the playoffs, and away they go.
Were you nervous after Derby scored?
No. I mean, no. Once Villa went 2-0 up, it was like a very unusual cup final for Villa, because they traditionally don't do that. They haven't gone up in cup finals since the mid-90s. Since then, it's been a general, unflinching series of failures.
But this team is different.
I mean, it's not really. They got relegated, and they lost last year's cup final to Fulham. So, but once it goes 2-0, you're like, okay, well, something is different. Is
there a sense of the Burnley about this team, that they've come back up far improved than the team that went down? Or at least more streetwise? I know Burnley kind of, obviously same manager, there's a bit more continuity.
I think the big thing is that they've got a manager that they can believe in, who plays football, who's a Villa fan. I know it doesn't really matter that he's a Villa fan, right, in terms of success or anything, but fully understands and has been au fait with the mayhem that has been at the club for the last 10 years, really.
But that's a common thread in the entire squad, isn't it? When your captain and your manager cares deeply about the club, like boyhood fans, they know the ins and outs, they care about it. I think that does count for something. It's great to see.
Well, I think Jack Grealish would have been gone if, under any other circumstances. I think that if he didn't care enough about Villa, he would have left. And it's rare, and I presume Villa now will ramp up the money that they're paying him to what he would be getting if he was to sign for anybody else. Or close enough to it, because
he's not leaving this year.
No, absolutely not. And I think that that's the thing that gives them a chance of getting up. Like, Grealish is impacting on every game he plays in a way that you kind of wondered whether or not his talent would allow him, or whether or not his commitment to his talent would allow him to be consistent. And he is now, and he's got a wiry strength, and he's become a man, basically.
My favourite part of yesterday was John Terry's humility. Immediately at the full-time whistle, the sort of, no, need to go over and shake my mate's hand. I haven't seen it too often from John Terry. Are we seeing a reformed character on the sideline at Aston Villa? I
don't know.
I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean,
is he? Would you say he's your favourite member?
No, definitely not. He's had a more background role, and look, maybe he ends up going to Derby. Who knows? Maybe that's what happens now. Maybe he's got a taste for the Championship, and he's going to stay there with Frank Lampard, and they'll have one season together before they get the Chelsea job after that. Who knows? We've got George Elek with us this morning, host of the Not the Top 20 pod. George, good morning to you. How you doing?
Yeah, good morning. Good, thanks.
You've heard us withering away there. What are Villa's chances of staying up, do you think?
I think they're probably pretty good. I mean, there needs a lot of reinvestment in the squad. If you look at the players, the loan players who are going to be going back, the likes of Tyrone Mings, Axel Tuanzebe, and of course Tammy Abraham, they're big players and big roles they have to fill. We saw how important the January signings were. Mings especially was so big coming in to shore up that defence. And even in fullback areas, El Mohammadi and Neil Taylor, I wouldn't say are good enough fullbacks for Premier League level. So it's a fantastic day for them yesterday. They deserve their promotion, and you know, they're a massive, massive club who deserve to be in the Premier League. But a big job this summer to get the players that needed to stay up. They've got that foundation with McGinn and Grealish. You assume they're going to try and keep both, and both will stay. And they're both definitely a Premier League quality. But it's going to be, I would have thought, a high turnover of players for Dean Smith to get to work on straight away.
It is a pretty remarkable recovery from where they were kind of November, December time, when it really looked like they were going to finish mid-table. They weren't even close to the hunt for a playoff place.
Yeah, when they conceded 2 goals at home to West Brom, they conceded the most home goals in all 4 leagues. So that's Premier League down to League Two. So it's quite unbelievable that a couple of months later they've been promoted to the Premier League. It's an amazing turnaround of form. As I say, Dean Smith deserves huge credit because after he was initially appointed, they went through a little purple patch, and then that was followed by what wasn't a very good run of form. I think it was 2 wins in 13 games whilst Jack Grealish was out with that shin injury. And then Tyrone Mings came in. Grealish came back into the side. And that record-breaking winning run, I think, just galvanised the whole club. And Smith deserves massive credit for that. It didn't look like it was going to be possible for them to get into this position. They were 5 points behind their rivals Birmingham after that game against West Brom. And now Birmingham ended up mid-table after that points deduction. And Villa have gone up. So a huge achievement. And as you say, it didn't look on the cards back in February and March.
Yeah, and did the football that they played over that period of time, was that the thing that got them up? Did they deserve to go up in your view?
Yeah, I think they did. I think one of the key reasons why the relationship between Aston Villa fans and Steve Bruce was never particularly good was because of the football that he was playing with them. And they always had a squad full of qualities, full of attacking flair, full of technical ability. And Bruce was just a very pragmatic manager who didn't really coax the best out of that. And Smith has come in and immediately encouraged his players to express themselves. He said straight away that he needed Grealish to impact games more in the final third. His assists and goals, 2 stats that I think are slightly overrated when judging a player's impact who plays in centre midfield, but they've gone up straight away. And you can see that's because he's understood the need to get these players impacting games more often. And the style of football is very good. You know, it's expansive. He plays out from the back. Having Tuanzebe and Mings, who are very good ball players, at centre-back, has been a huge help for them. And they may have to, and we've seen what happened with Fulham this year, another team who are very, very good at playing passing football and ending up coming unstuck in the Premier League. So he may have to temper that. But at the moment, they look like they could. I mean, Dean Smith's just a very promising manager who I'm excited to see try his stuff in the Premier League.
What about Derby County? I mean, again, no one really knew exactly how Frank Lampard was going to perform as a manager, but that's a very creditable first season.
It is, definitely. It's a tough one to really weigh up because Derby were amongst the favourites for promotion in the Championship, but then there was Frank Lampard and the fans saying that's definitely not our expectation at all. They started very well in terms of results. The performances weren't great. And I think we've seen Lampard develop into a very good manager over the course of the season. I mean, I personally think he is nowhere near ready for the Chelsea job. I think any Chelsea fans who want Maurizio Sarri to be replaced by Frank Lampard this summer for anything but sentimental reasons need to have another think. Because the fact is that Lampard could one day be a very good Chelsea manager. And he's learning his trade now at the right place, at a club that's going to give him time and support. He's going to continue to use his contacts to bring in very good loan players. And I think, again, yesterday we saw him a little bit naive in his team selection, playing both Huddleston and Bradley Johnson in the midfield too. Was just a bit negative, not starting either Marriott or Waghorn or both. I mean, as soon as they came onto the pitch, Derby were a completely different team, instead siding with Mason Bennett again, as he did against Leeds. So yesterday would have been a big learning curve for Lampard, and one that's going to make him stronger, but there's no chance he's ready for the Premier League at the moment.
What's the actual atmosphere like at these games? Because, I mean, so much hype around the money. I mean, it used to be the 20 million, the 40 million, the 60 million, and now it's the 180 million or whatever it is. Are the fans as feverish at this game as they are at any other game?
The atmosphere was pretty incredible. I mean, Wembley's not known for its atmosphere, but for all 3 games, huge credit to the fans. 85,000 fans there yesterday, both Derby fans and Villa fans making a lot of noise. The Charlton fans were absolutely phenomenal on Sunday, it has to be said. A club who've gone through a lot of turmoil recently with an absent owner in Du Châtelet, who hasn't been the greatest guy. I've been to the Valley many times in recent years, and there have been very few home fans, no atmosphere at all. But they turned out in their masses on Sunday and made a hell of a noise. So they deserve credit for that. And yesterday, again, was a huge spectacle. Villa fans were fantastic. Derby fans were very, very loud in the last 15 minutes after they got the one back. And I was lucky enough to go to all 3 games, and it's been a really enjoyable weekend. Sunderland,
after the humiliation of the relegation that they've suffered, and then the added humiliation of the documentary series where everybody's basically laughing at the laughingstock of the club, had an opportunity to kind of redeem themselves. Sometimes this is a staging post, but sometimes a defeat like that is a dagger to the heart, and it can take half a decade to recover.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do now. I'm of the opinion that Jack Ross has had a very, very poor first season in charge of Sunderland. I mean, they're a huge club for League One level. They've ended up finishing 5th. I think they're flattered to deceive for most of the season as well. Even when they were second early on in the season, they had their keeper John McLaughlin to thank for that. He was arguably the best player in League One this season. There's another Netflix series coming out on the back of this campaign, so that's going to be interesting to see. With Johnny Williams obviously coming off the bench to be the star for Charlton after his protagonist role, let's say, in the first series. And it's the new owners are going to have an interesting decision to make, because the fans lost their faith with Ross towards the end of the season. The attendance for the Portsmouth game in the semi-final was their lowest of the season at home. They struggled to sell out their allocation at Wembley, which is unheard of for them. It's a massive club with a huge fan base, and they're not. They thought that this spell in League One was going to be a one-season spell, and they were excited for it, to score some goals and win some games and bring the good feeling back. And that hasn't been the case now. And the fact that they've got so many attacking players at their disposal, Will Grigg coming in for a couple of million quid in January, Aidan McGeady on the wing, and they still just can't really find a way to create chances regularly. And that has got to come down to the manager. So in my opinion, that there are a few managers out there who'd be better suited to the role. Ryan Lowe, who's looked set to leave Bury, who made them into a really good attacking team. Got Nicky Maynard back on the back scoring hatfuls of goals. So if he can do that for Maynard, I'm sure he can do it as well for Will Grigg. And we'll see in the next week or so, I guess, whether or not Sunderland are going to stick or twist.
George, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Cheers.
It's George Elek there from the Not the Top 20 podcast.
Great news that there's a sequel to Sunderland Till I Die.
Oh my God.
Is there no other club that they could have looked at, or that Sunderland could have shoved them in the direction of? That's going to be great. Really looking forward to that. It's not going to be as good as season 1, I'd imagine, but great looking forward to season 2. It's interesting what he says about Frank Lampard, actually, where he says that he's definitely not good enough to manage Chelsea, and then he concluded that answer by saying that he's definitely not ready to manage in the Premier League in general. So clearly a bit more of a learning curve for Lampard. And it's always a high-risk scenario, isn't it? You lose a playoff final and going back in again, going through the marathon season that is the Championship, and trying to get back there again. That makes the Aston Villa thing all the more impressive, getting back there after last year and winning this time.
Isn't it easier for somebody like Frank Lampard, though, to manage in the Premier League than it is to manage these mediocre players?
You'd almost think so.
Like, there is a case for that. There is a case that when he tells whoever is on the Chelsea playing squad how he wants them to play, they all understand because they've come through a system. There is a chance that when he's talking to these players, he's asking them in the Championship, he's asking them to do stuff that they can't do, and he's like, well, you know, obviously it's up to him to recalibrate his expectations, but at the same time, you know, what would Pep's Championship team look like? They'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
And everybody would get better as footballers, but they might get the shit kicked out of them.
They probably would, and they would win some games in absolutely fantastic style.
Yeah.
And they would also go down
7-3.
1-0 to Rotherham on certain occasions as well. And
It'd be good though. I would watch that Netflix.
No, I would 100% watch that. Pep in the Championship is a weird social experiment that we need to make happen ASAP.
And here's the thing, in our crazy screwed up world where content behemoths like Amazon and Netflix are existing, there might come a period in about 5 years' time where Pep goes, yeah, I will take the 20 million you're offering me to manage team, and there's like a grand reveal. Everybody in the Championship that season bids to get Pep as their manager. And whoever's the existing manager, sorry, you're just going to have to be assistant manager sitting in the corner watching Pep. Steve Bruce, come on down. Oh, sorry, I like your hustle. Pep's your new manager.
It's like, I'm not sure, did you watch that Football's Next Star, was it the Sky One reality TV show where whatever Football's Next Star it was called, and a host of young footballers tried out to become the next wunderkind for Chelsea. That could be the reality TV series, except it's 20 chairmen in a boardroom and Pep is actually in the Alan Sugar role. And eventually one of them becomes the apprentice, aka the employer of Pep Guardiola.
What? Netflix turns that down for 20 million?
Well,
absolutely, they do not. And like, all you need is 15 of the chairmen to show up. The 5
actually
who are
22 chairmen.
Well, exactly. All you need is enough in the room to make it a bit of drama. If it's 2, that's probably enough.
Or 24. I keep getting the numbers wrong.
Who cares?
Who cares? Also, it wouldn't actually just be Netflix to do this. It should be like a Fire Festival documentary where you have a Netflix and a Hulu version of Pep Guardiola's next club.
Pep versus Jose.
Pep's next step.
Oh yeah, we got the whole thing there. Can we patent that and get it off this morning to high-level executives at Netflix?
Yeah, let's just absolutely kill the stream right now. Don't let this get out into the public.
See you later, guys. We've got business to do. Here's what's coming up on the show this morning. Villa Rising, we've done that. Sports page is coming your way right now. Transfers, we're going to go through the the Bible of transfer rumours, and tell you whether or not it's actually going to happen. We can exclusively reveal whether or not these things are going to happen today. Alan Quinlan's going to join us at 8:05. Looks like Joe Schmidt's going to name a 45-man squad today. Quinny yesterday tipped a few bolters or potential bolters. There's a few more that we're going to talk about today. Will Jean Klein be in that squad, for example? Has he got a chance of making the team? And Tommy O'Donnell will talk a bit more about that as well. And what about fullback? Rob Kearney obviously signed up now for another year, so he is safely ensconced in the 15 shirt. Paddy Holohan's going to talk to us about being elected. Stood in the local council elections and has gone from, the cage to those boring council meetings where everybody sits and talks about procedural nonsense for 3 hours and then make sure that the pothole on their road gets fixed. So we'll talk about that and what changes he can make representing the people of Jobstown. We're going to speak with 3 of our Olympic swimming hopefuls. One of them a diver.
Yeah, so 3 aquatics hopefuls. You got Brendan Hyland and Darragh Greene, 2 swimmers, and then Clare Cryan, who's a diver. She was Oliver Dingley's teammate when they became Ireland's first international winners in synchronised diving a couple of months ago. So it's an interesting chat. It was recorded last week. All of them have interesting stories and big futures away for all of them.
Cool. Time for the papers. We're starting with the Irish Examiner this morning. A whole new ball game. 2-tier system can fix football's image problem. So this looks like it's actually going to happen. We've reached a stage of no return. I think that this is probably it. So everybody needs to wake up, and all those boring conversations that we've been having for the last decade have finally borne fruit. Mm-hmm. The fixture list, the championship structures, the fixture list. Well, it's all about to be fixed. So John Horan has formed the fixtures review group, and he's asked them to bring 3 separate proposals together to Congress 2020. So at next year's Congress, there will be 3 proposals put forward. They will be voted on, and they will be different, it seems, from each other. 3 radically different ones. He revealed yesterday morning that Eddie Sullivan, the former chairman of the St Sylvester's Club in Malahide and former Secretary General of the Department of Finance, is going to chair the committee. The Club Players Association and the Gaelic Players Association will each have 1 representative, as will the GAA's post-primary and third level bodies. So Micheál Brodie is on it, and I don't know who from the GPA has been appointed just yet, but it's official. There is a committee. They will be tasked with putting proposals together, and he's saying, look, if we're going to get rid of the provincial championships, then we need alternatives. Mm-hmm. So,
well, fair play to him for coming out and saying this, because it's the easiest thing to kick this can down the road, to think about the Tier 2 counties who may not be overly happy with this at the start until they realise the positives of it, and as a result, may not have their full support behind you and all that sort of thing at Congress. Like, it's a political minefield being the president of the GAA or being anybody involved in the GAA. So it's great to actually see him come out and actually speak his mind and actually say what he wants to happen and what they're actually working towards. And it's good, proactive thinking. And also, another positive is that it's going to happen soon. Quite often when you hear about these proposals, it's given a shiny word like
2022,
GAA thinking 2030 or something like that. And there's like a snazzy 1-minute video of drone shots over the cliffs of Moher.
That all disappeared. The 2030 one disappeared.
It's somewhere in the background. I don't care how much dust that gathers. Just sort this out first. This is the single biggest problem facing Gaelic football, because also you have the club player knock on as well. So it's great to see the CPA involved as well.
Yeah. Here you go. There's the one of the 2 that got away, Jack Grealish, celebrating yesterday. Did you see his boots?
No.
He wore his lucky boots, and they're like literally falling apart. You can just about see them in the front. See there?
Yeah, wow.
See there? It's barely kept together, but it turns out he didn't really need new boots.
Are you going to cut that out and sellotape them onto your bedroom wall now?
There's no room.
No room. It's already full with Villa legends.
Villa's royal victory because Prince William was there.
Yeah. Alongside
John Carew. They're princes in their own minds, right?
Well, for sure.
So John Carew probably has a higher opinion of himself than Prince William does. Hazard's farewell. We did something amazing together. Hazard not even pretending that he's coming back next year. And then Newcastle take over, not a done deal. It says business as usual. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with Newcastle. And if Rafa Benitez gets to spend all the petrodollars.
Mm-hmm. That could be another reality TV show. Instead of keeping up with the Kardashians, it's like keeping up with the cousins, and they're just sitting around marble tables discussing
which football club they're going to buy.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I'm going to start with the Irish Daily Star. Jack in the big time. Grealish is a cut above as Villa return to the Prem. Davy will avoid ban for antics, meanwhile, says Carl O'Kane. It looks like he's not going to get a prolonged ban after he was sent to the stands for during the game in Pearse Stadium on Sunday. Toon takeover on cards, that's a Newcastle story. And then good news, it has to be good news, the availability for Spurs fans. Kane is able for decider. So Harry Kane has declared himself fit for the Champions League final. Just kind of have an image, like the scene in The Office when Michael Scott doesn't really know about bankruptcy, and he's like, somebody tells him, a financial advisor is like, you need to declare bankruptcy immediately. So he goes into the office and tells everybody to shut up, and he's like, I declare bankruptcy. And I have that image of Harry Kane walking into the dressing room yesterday saying, I declare fitness, which I really hope did happen. And I'm not sure if it's actually going to materialise to any positive news, because you're actually of the opinion that he shouldn't be starting this weekend.
No, I don't. I think that
if you're declaring your fitness on a Monday before a game, you're not match fit. You're not ready to. You're not match sharp to go against Liverpool, who you need to be uber sharp for.
if you're a Liverpooler, you just like, I just think I'll leave a little bit on that ankle just to see how. I mean, you're fit. How fit? Is it match fit? Fit? Is it me kicking you fit? Fit?
You don't kick him at all. You let him run and you make him think that he's having the game of his life. Of course, you defend well against him, but you don't kick him. You want him on the pitch for as long as possible, and you want him to completely
No, they've wasted a sub then.
fizzle out. Yeah, well, I guess that is true.
Think of the psychological impact of seeing their totemic leader, who they managed to win the semi-final without.
I don't think he's.
Maybe you're right.
He's according to the sources around the club, Pochettino is going to wait until the last minute to make this call.
Right. To break the bad news to him that you're not coming on. Here we go. Delaney's UEFA future uncertain as FAI look to European model. And that's John Terry and Conor Holohan. Having Conor Holohan playing week in, week out in the Premier League next season is going to be great for Ireland, assuming he starts every game, which I think he probably will next season. John Delaney won't be in Baku for the UEFA executive meeting, according to Dan McDonald's piece in the back of the Indo today. UEFA have given a brief statement which confirmed he won't be attending, but they don't have any reason for why he's not going to be there. So
I'd say he's just against the human rights abuses of Aliyev and his regime in Azerbaijan. That is definitely the reason why he's not going to be there.
Kearney very close to signing a new contract for next season. This was Rob Kearney obviously speaking yesterday. He pretty much confirmed it. So he did a roundtable with some of the written press yesterday, and then obviously he spoke with Joe last night on Off the Ball. We'll play a clip of that later on when he's talking about that speculation, and it looks like it's over. He's going to sign a new deal for at least next season. And then this is interesting too. There's a sense growing that Davy Fitzgerald won't be banned for being sent to the sidelines, which is interesting because this was his second one this year. So there was an alternative viewpoint out there that perhaps he would actually be banned for quite a long period of time, but maybe it wasn't that serious, and maybe the referee thought about it a little bit and went, ooh, probably shouldn't have sent him off. And actually everything Davy said afterwards was correct. And then Larry Mulls giving up PGA card to boost Ryder Cup bid. Things go very well for Shane Larry this season, playing really well, and feels like perhaps if he wants to make the Ryder Cup team next year under his best mate, Pádraig Harrington, then obviously the best way to do that would be to give up his PGA Tour card, which would be a pretty amazing thing to give up, given that most golfers spend their entire life to do it. But it would be a real sign that Shane Larry is not really motivated by money the way most people are, and that actually it means a lot to him to play in the big tournaments, and particularly to represent Europe with Harrington, which is an amazing thing in modern sport.
Yeah, it's class, isn't it? The back page of the Mirror is loved up. Wills leads Villa's right royal knees up as Boss Smith roars, we're back where we belong, and Captain Jack must be happy. He just told me he loves me. That's the longest sub-headline of all time. Kane raring to go for Tottenham, and trophy's my ideal farewell, says Eden Hazard. Not really, as you say, keeping anything secretive about the idea that he is definitely going to leave Chelsea after the Europa League final. Fits in the clear, says Pat Nolan, and Ashley agrees to £300 million Toon shake-up. Fun on the shake.
The Herald, Dubs look set to appeal red. TV replay fuels hope that ban for Mannion may be quashed. Dublin look increasingly likely to contest Paul Mannion's weekend red card against Louth. The RTE footage of the incident fueled hopes in the capital. The two-time All-Star could yet be cleared for the game against Kildare. I mean, not that they need him. I mean, they could start with 14. It's Kildare or Longford, I should have said. They could start with 14. We were trying to have this conversation in the office yesterday.
Yeah, someone tweeted me on Sunday, forgive me for forgetting the handle, asking me how many people would Dublin need to field, how many players do they need to field for a team like Louth to stand a chance? 10? We're talking the full 70 minutes. Let's plan this for the full 70 minutes here.
And so do Louth know that they're only playing against 10 men from the get-go? So they can just put 15 men behind the ball and it'll be like a 7-6, 5-all draw.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. Well, even when you put it that way, just a blanket defence lining up against 9 Dublin outfield players, still fancy Dublin to unlock that.
You would, wouldn't you? I'd say 11.
Just about. Like, I think they'd need 10. I think it's also when Louth have the ball, really. That's when they'd grind them down. Maybe if there was no subs as well, they might have a chance. The back page of the Sun is Whackpot. Jack eye cut by Cup as Villa win £180 million bonanza. Did you see this yesterday?
No.
He was caught by the trophy along with when he was celebrating along with James Chester following their win yesterday. I love the way the sentence starts. Ireland deserter Grealish revealed, "I got a little nudge and knocked it onto my eyebrow, which split open. I won't be looking too good for the celebrations." So he got a little bit of a gash there on the eyebrow, which will just toughen him up. Speaking as a fellow purveyor of the scar, it'll make you look far better, Jack.
Yeah. Hard, I believe, is the word.
Exactly.
There. Villa back in the big time. Well, it's a picture of the two local boys, the two Villa fans, Dean Smith and Jack Grealish. There's a cup. I didn't even know there was a cup. Has there always been a cup?
Yeah.
Since the Echo?
Yeah, I used to think when I was playing Football Manager that it was better to just finish third and second in
because then you get into playoffs.
Because then you get one extra trophy alongside your manager, and if you were as ego boosted as my Football Manager character was, then for sure you would try and go after that.
Benitez wary of new owner. This is an interesting story. George Calkin has it. Rafa Benitez wants assurances after it looks like a Middle Eastern billionaire announced he had agreed terms to buy the club. And he just wants to make sure, because his deal expires at the end of next month, that he is actually going to be the man to take them forward.
The Irish Daily Mail goes with Kearney deal. Ireland star is set to carry on beyond Japan. Jumping Jack Cash is the headline from Wembley yesterday, and Fitzgerald to escape ban after Salt Hill dismissal.
And here is the Times. Time for the GAA to be bold and go for a new format, is Kevin McStay. The April experiment has not worked. The qualifiers have been wonderful, but as a concept, their races run over. All the weaker counties did not benefit from the format. And there's a suggested calendar for an inter-county close season from September. And then also, Showdown comes early for Donegal and Tyrone. That's obviously the semi-final. And GAA ready to bite the bullet on fixtures with new committee. So it's kind of a small story, but it's actually the main thing that's going to happen in the future of Gaelic football. Like, Gaelic football is primed to take over Irish sport. It's just been buried away, like in the bleak midwinter, where all the best players play in all the big games, and nobody gets to get better because they don't get a chance to play together in the summertime.
The problem is that the longer they leave this, the more it gets buried away beyond the point of no return.
It's never beyond no return. I actually think that hurling had that great season last year, but the hurling season this year hasn't been that great. But
it's not as good as last year.
Yeah, and so it might never be as good as last year. And that might have been, that's fine, we fixed that now because we had that one good year and we'll dine out on that for a number of years. But the football season, because teams have started to play a bit more attacking football because the defensive cycle is naturally finished, because that's how all sport works. If you look at the history of organised sport, it's always worked exactly the same way. The football's getting better. Teams are getting better, more players are staying around. Like, if Longford had their best players available to them for a fixture of a series of games over the summer, who knows what might happen? Yeah, they could actually have an amazing run in summertime and get really good at football. And that's not. I don't think the race is run. I don't think it's too late for that. So O'Brien had that rare quality of making others play better, as Jerry Thorney's tribute to Sean O'Brien. And new guidelines issued on high tackles and shoulder charges. You saw Ross Tucker tweeting about this yesterday. I didn't get a chance to actually look at the videos that they were putting out, but World Rugby is trying to address high tackles and shoulder charges in a way that's meaningful. So, fingers crossed that they'll get there.
The Racing Post goes with Morrison on tenterhooks as Telecaster heads for the derby. That's Telecaster, whose odds are shortening for the Investec derby. And back page of the Racing Post is victorious Villa. Picture there of Aston Villa celebrating their playoff win yesterday, and that is the same story on the back of the Guardian. Champagne moment, Villa back in the big time after playoff glory.
Okay, so transfer rumours. This is the bit where we go through the best and worst transfer rumours, and Owen exclusively reveals whether or not it's going to happen. We're starting with Sergio Ramos. Mm-hmm. We all want to see Sergio Ramos leave Real Madrid just for a couple of seasons to see what happens. It turns out he has asked Real Madrid president Florentino Perez to let him leave the club for China. He had previously been linked with the possible move to Manchester United or Liverpool. Should Ole Gunnar Solskjaer hijack the deal and bring him to Old Trafford, or could he end up at Liverpool?
Well, if the option is there for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to hijack a move that would involve Sergio Ramos playing for Manchester United, even for 1 year, he obviously should do that thing. Like, I don't really see any other course of action that would be good here. The thing is, you're obviously getting an asset here that is decreasing in value year after year after year.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No, you want that bastard in your club, right?
You really do.
Would you pay the 24 million that he's going to get in China for the year? Or the 12 million, whatever it is?
You kind of have to. It's emergency button time at Manchester United, and there is almost a safety to the emergency button that
sign
is Sergio
him,
Ramos.
sign De Ligt, and suddenly things are fixed. And then De Ligt learns what it's like to be a bastard, and he turns into the new Sergio Ramos.
That could be the thing. We'll get to De Ligt in a while, but like that does seem...
Credibility rating?
Credibility? Well, it's reported in La Sexta, so it has to be true. 10 out of 10.
Chelsea's Maurizio Sarri is reported to have agreed terms with Juventus, which would earn him a 1.2 million a year pay rise. Really? It was also reported yesterday that Lamps is more likely to end up at Chelsea if Derby didn't get promoted, as has just happened. Will Frank Lampard be the Chelsea manager when the 2019-2020 season kicks off?
I think we had a bit of a spoiler earlier on. The answer to that question is obviously no. It is not going to happen.
Really?
He's not seen... Like, he will not be the Chelsea manager when next season kicks off.
Do you really think so?
I really think so.
You think Sarri will be?
Well, it certainly won't be Frank Lampard.
I think there's a good chance now if Maurizio Sarri goes and he wants to go. So you're giving this credibility rating?
1.
I'm giving it a good 8.5.
So, put it to you this way.
Totes Mosh, Roman Abramovich, not really that interested in the club anymore, loves Frank Lampard.
Yeah.
How can he rekindle this multi-billion pound investment that he's made? Get one of his boys in who loves him unconditionally because he was the one who delivered greatness. This is like full circle, last few years, get the club back, sell it on, away you go.
Who knows about the nature of the inner workings of Chelsea and what a disaster it is to be manager there? Ex-players know. Frank Lampard is an ex-Chelsea player. He's seen a lot of things happen at that football club. He's seen some of the great managers have their reputations destroyed because of working at Chelsea Football Club.
No.
That is not a club where you want to go. For a manager who is that serious about developing himself as a football manager, for a man who is this caught up and this determined to bring Derby County up to the Premier League, for a man who we just heard earlier on from George, who is clearly an expert on Frank Lampard, saying that he's not good enough to manage in the Premier League, all these signs point to a 1 credibility rating.
No. The power at Chelsea lay with Frank Lampard and John Terry. It didn't lay ever with the other managers. All the managers were basically facilitating the running of the club by John Terry and Frank Lampard, and now he's ready. The time has come. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 and we'll see what happens.
On the credibility rating of Maurizio Sarri not being there,
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10, for sure. Marcus Alonso's quotes are actually very interesting, and this so patronising towards Maurizio Sarri. He was like, it's never easy to come to a new country and new league, new football, new culture. The gaffer is still learning. He was not a football player either, so he is learning a lot this year. Taking orders from someone like that can be different, but at the end of the day, we have to be professional and take on whatever he asks us for. He is different.
Wow.
That is such a pat on the head. Good boy, Maurizio. Well done for applying your pharmaceutical knowledge to football.
You're not a footballer. Not even a footballer. Not even a football man, Maurizio Sarri, getting 91 points with Napoli and not winning the league even though you beat Juventus and being like finally putting it up to them one season. No, you're not a football man. I, Marcus Alonso, am a football man.
The thing with Maurizio Sarri is that the trophy thing is thrown at him as well.
Ajax Netherlands defender Matthijs de Ligt, 19, says reports linking him with the summer move to Manchester United to be taken with a pinch of salt. What's this, Salt Bay, dude? Is that one of those pinches?
Should be taken with a pinch of salt. Yeah, credibility rating 10 out of 10. Absolute banker. There's no way this guy moves to Manchester United. I know we've spoken about this before, but why would you take your particular set of talents, as LeBron James said, to Old Trafford at this point, especially as a central defender, unless you handcuff him with the whole Sergio Ramos transfer?
So zero de Ligt.
1, I'll give him 1.
Swansea City resigned to losing Wales winger Daniel James, 21, to Manchester United for £15 million.
That's a 10 out of 10, to be quite honest with you.
Since we last discussed this transfer picture, Thomas Tuchel says he can't guarantee Brazil forward Neymar and 20-year-old France striker Kylian Mbappe will remain at the club. Who should buy them if they want out? PSG have discussed a move for Liverpool's 33-year-old English midfielder James Milner, whose contract with the Reds expires next year. Will Milner cash in and go to France? I'm bundling you those all together.
Mbappe, Real Madrid need to sign him ASAP. Neymar, anybody who is a top club that have ambitions of winning the Champions League, do not sign this guy. James Milner, yes, just go to Paris, sip on the wine.
Ex-Manchester United boss Jose Mourinho has yet to decide where his next managerial role will be after being sacked by the Old Trafford club in December. Where will Jose go? Back to Old Trafford. Where will he go?
Paris Saint-Germain.
Oh, yeah? 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 7 out of 10.
Win them the Champions League. That's all they want.
He's never going to win the Champions League again. He's finished. He needs to go and take like a lowly, unheralded Portuguese team to the Champions League group stages, and then he can restore his reputation.
Or take that China club to Asian Champions League glory and come back and win the actual Champions League with Paris Saint-Germain. Wait for the tactical wheel to turn back around to defensive football.
Real news, not transfer news. Friend of the show, Andre Villas-Boas, has reported to have agreed terms to take control of Marseille.
Great news for Marseille. Andre Villas-Boas, one of the unheralded talents around world football. Again, when you talk about reputations getting taken and ripped to shreds by a football club, Andre Villas-Boas is the perfect example of the victim in all of this. He has been harshly treated, and our view of him has been even harsher than that again.
Yeah, we got it wrong on Andre Villas-Boas. We needed to give him far more respect for the things that he's done, and he deserves our love and praise.
He certainly does. Good to see him back.
Yeah. Fair play to Marseille for giving him the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing him in the Champions League pretty soon. Right, despite speculation that he was set to depart Leinster this summer, Rob Kearney sat down with Off the Ball and explained that's not going to happen. He's going to be remaining where he is for the time being. How look?
Your future?
Yes.
Undecided, TBC?
To be confirmed. Pretty very close, just short of a signature at this stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
The likelihood are that you're staying and come to an agreement?
Yeah.
Great.
So it was all...
I thought the writing was on the wall with the way even just publicly Dave McHugh said a few things and they're in the paper, your agent, and Dave Nucifora said, I don't even know who that guy is, which didn't seem like the most conciliatory response, and I thought this thing is heading one way.
Yeah, no, it was all blown out of proportion a little bit.
Right.
So the offer was on the table maybe 2.5, 3 months ago. And there was a few small things to sort out, and then we were getting into Champions Cup semi-final, and I didn't want anything to do with it the week of that. And then we're into final, and I made a decision, and I was like, right, I'm just going to park this altogether until the season's done. Try and get a medal, 2 medals, and then pick it up. So my intention was, just to finish it all off this week. And then in the meantime, things kicked off and sort of blew up out of proportion a little bit.
Okay. Who does the negotiation for you?
So myself and my dad have pretty much done them all down through the years.
All right. So you sit in the room and talk it out face to face? No agent, no someone doing it for you?
No, myself, my old man, and David Nucifora sitting down, having a coffee, having the chat.
Right. A lot of players wouldn't feel equipped to handle those kind of discussions.
No, well, I suppose I wouldn't have sat in on them on the early years.
Sure.
But I think
Did your dad do that then?
Yeah, I think as you get a little bit older, I've obviously sat in negotiation rooms with David Nucifora for World Cup contracts and things like that on my Rugby Players Ireland capacity. So I probably felt a little bit more equipped to be able to sit down and try and trash things out.
Right. And so, do these things, I don't know how blunt they get, I mean, it'd be fascinating to sit in a room sometime. Does it get to a point where he says, right, buddy, 33, you're probably not going to play at the next World Cup, so putting your money to this. And then you come back and say, well, I've played in these games, I keep getting picked for the big games, you're not cutting anything. Like, is it that kind
Were you sitting in on the meeting? Were you a bug?
Oh yeah, that's good stuff. Did you ever sit in your own? You did your own contracts, I presume. There was no agents in your times.
No, I had an agent. Probably from 2002 onwards, I had an agent, John Baker. He went in and did my contracts.
I think your mic might be on mute there, is it?
My mic might be on mute.
That's it, better. No, we got you now.
We have it now.
Yeah.
It is powered off, I think. Oh, and he's
I'll
the
turn
man
it
with the
on
mics.
Well, sure. Hang on a second there until Owen works his magic.
I think you're all good to go there,
We're all good to go now. It's changed over the years. You couldn't, I'd find that uncomfortable now, sitting in there with
Yeah, because Nucifora's job is to try and screw you for everything you can, and you're sitting in the room going, he's like, I've got this video here, Rob knocking on.
It depends what...
Give away this penalty.
Depends what level you're at. If you're on the national team and it's, like, I suppose if you're you're somewhere in the middle, it's tricky because you're fighting for that extra few quid. But it's strange. But he's obviously comfortable with that. I wouldn't have been. In the earlier days, I think it was really interesting. There was no negotiating. It was just an offer.
Yeah.
And you kind of accepted them. And then there was a little bit of manoeuvre. I remember Philip Brown came to our hotel in one time, and it was meetings going on all day, guys going in and out, and a bit of to and fro in and out. And then the manager at the time, the Irish team, Brian O'Brien, you'd nearly talk to him, he'd go back in and chat, and it was it's totally different than it is now, because these guys have a lot of offers on the table, and there's options and stuff. So,
in fairness to Rob Kearney, he did point out that you're taking a big risk if you head off to one of the English clubs, and that he now, his body is not used to playing week in, week out. He gets managed really well by Leinster and Ireland, and his minutes are managed, and that is beginning to show.
For sure.
And it's beginning to show the benefits of having players play out their careers here, and I think that's important for culture. I think it's important to have people like Rob Kearney around. I think it's a big loss to Leinster not having Sean O'Brien. Like, even Lancaster said that he hasn't really had the opportunity to coach Sean O'Brien that much since he arrived because he's been injured so much, but that his presence around the place, his leadership has been really important. And you can see that a culture needs people, it needs the older guys to set the tone, so that the younger lads coming through just don't expect that it's
and
always
they give a calmness and a reassurance, don't they, to younger players when they come through about, perceived big name teams coming to play in European matches, and they can say we've done this before, and we're Leinster and we're this, and this is our culture and this is the way we do things. So it does make a difference. I'm surprised that it wasn't there's not a 2-year on the table there, to go for 9 months. Maybe he'll just call it a day in 9 months' time. A lot of players, though, I had the experience in the end, and it was different than Rob. He's a starter in the Irish team all the time. I wasn't. I was hanging on to try and play with Munster at the end, and I was just getting 1-year deals. So you can understand it's a real business, and there's no sentiment there. I thought it would have been get to 2 years. He's there till the end of next season, and maybe he'll retire after that. He's kind of limiting his chance of maybe going away now, isn't he? Because he's going to be 34 when the next contract finishes, and then you're kind of going, will a French club or an English club pay big money to get you? And then you have the attritional side of all that. So he said he wants to stay, and his business is in Dublin, his family, his brother, it probably suits him to stay, and obviously nobody knows that better than himself, so he's comfortable to stay for another year. If it was me, it's hard to go away, you know what I mean? I can't say that I would have went away, but because I wanted to stay and I believed I could still get on the Munster team for the last few years of my contract. Finishing on a high at the World Cup would be a nice way to go, and then keep the legacy really intact. It's frustrated me in the last few years the way people have jumped on his back and criticised him a lot. He's been an incredibly consistent performer since 2009. I remember when he came into the Irish squad first saying, this guy is, a real steel and a resilience. That's what jumped out with him about me. And I sat down with him a couple of times. I did a piece in 2016 after Chicago, and what jumped out was the response, the power, the kind of warrior spirit that he showed in Chicago when Joe Schmidt sat down with him and basically said, look, this is kind of make or break. There was a lot of push in the press to get Jared Payne full back, get Gary Ringrose into the team after the World Cup. At 13, Payne was playing 13. He responded. Even recently, I did one in October as well, and I was really intrigued in what he thought about this and the criticism, and he mentioned it with Joe there, the social media side of things, the way he's had to kind of block it out, which is a bit unfair because he's probably Ireland's most decorated player.
He is, yeah.
Like, you look what he's won.
Everything. 2
Grand Slams, 2 championships along with that, 90 Ireland caps, 3 Lions caps, 2 Lions tours, 4 Heineken Cups, 5 Pro 14s, Challenge Cup, European Player of the Year in 2012. It's phenomenal.
It is.
And then
let's play that clip actually, because you mentioned him talking to Joe about the abuse on social media. Have a look.
It's a tough one because I've been asked this a fair bit, and I've never really actually properly nailed the answer. It is very stressful, because you take it personally.
Do you?
Yeah, you have to. It's your job. Your family are reading it.
And can you dismiss it as, well, they don't really know what they're talking about?
it's easier to dismiss when you're getting picked every week. You know, because you'd like to think that the coaching staff know more than, you know, someone on a keyboard.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose I've gone through a few tough years where it really did get to me, and we weren't winning things, and you know, I started to question my enjoyment playing for the national team, and then
because you started to associate it with stress and
just stress, and you're going into Six Nations camp, and you're thinking, here we go, 2 months of abuse now coming up.
Really?
Yeah. So then.
Or certainly scrutiny anyway.
Yeah.
Probably abuse as well.
Yeah, both. They go hand in hand, don't they? Everyone gets it at some stage. And then you get some big wins. You know, you beat the All Blacks twice. You know, you get another Grand Slam, and then you start to. You know, and I don't mean this in an arrogant sort of way, but you know, you have your medals there. No one is ever going to take them away from you. You know, and I wouldn't. I'd take all the abuse years over again, you know, to have those memories and those medals, because you know, opinions will come and go, but you know, you have that stuff for life.
You're a thoughtful guy, Rob Kearney. Let's move on, because we want to talk about the selection of the 45-man squad. We expect it to be announced today. It was potentially going to be announced yesterday. It's going to be announced today, it looks like, by Joe Schmidt. Some surprises coming our way?
Well, if you go back to November and see the 42 that he picked for November internationals, there's no one going to jump out here that's uncapped. I don't think. Maybe Max Deegan might get a look in the back row, like we spoke about the back rows here last year, a few months ago, didn't we? The depth that was there, and
it's all gone.
It looks a bit different now, doesn't it, when Levy is gone and Sean O'Brien.
So James Lowe is 2020. It looks like Jean Klein in September. Does he get into this squad?
He's in August, I think. It's around August, yeah. But he's available to be in this squad and train with them and be involved in the warm-ups. I think he's an option. I think he offers something different. His form hasn't been rock solid and consistent all year. He's been up and down a little bit. He's a real kind of enforcer type second row. I think he'll be named. I think Joe will have a good look at him over the summer and see if he can kind of build him into that system in any way. He's similar to Quinn Rue, isn't he? Similar type, power, strength, you know, scrummaging ability, breaking up mauls, physical. He's not the most skillful player in the world, I think, but he could be a very effective option. Gives a little bit more depth in the second row. You think 1 or 2 injuries there and we're in trouble, you know. If you got 2 second rows out injured, well, it's a
Dev
concern.
And Ian Henderson are both injured, and they both have been injured at the same time in the past. Then suddenly you've got James Ryan +1, and
so I think he's one that'll come in. Will Addison, he's had the injury since Christmas, back injury, so I think he should be in the mix because he offers an option. We're talking about the abuse of Rob Kearney. Who are the alternatives at full back? Jordan Larmour was put in there against Italy in November and didn't contest the high balls. And
Robbie Henshaw, is that experiment dead?
Not completely, I think. I think there's not going to be much experimenting between here and the World Cup, but it's only if your hand is forced with injuries that you have to put someone in a certain position.
What actually happens between now and the warm-up games? Like, it's a long old slog. Do you go into camp? Is it kind of, or what actually happens? Do they get some time off, I presume, as well?
They're back in. They're in the 16th of June, so they basically have 2 weeks off.
Now,
officially 2 weeks off, and I think they may train a little bit and stuff going on this week and still continue in their programs till the end of the week, and then it's an official 2 weeks off, and then they're back in the 16th. They train for 2 weeks and then they get another week off just to get a little bit of recovery after that initial blast of fitness. The key here, Owen, I think, and Ger, is in early on is conditioning. You need to get the body in great shape. Clearing up little injuries, it's weights, it's fitness.
Is that like a proper pre-season then?
They will, but I think this pre-season will be a little bit different than maybe most. There'll probably be a bit of ball work added into their speed drills and stuff like that in their fitness sessions, so it'll be rugby fitness rather than running on a track all the time or you know, doing sprints. So it'll be rugby specific, and then they'll be trying to make gains in the power and the strength. So you can't forget that. It's not this, like, this isn't a straight into rugby on the 16th of June and be out in rugby. They have to get fit and strong and rehab well. But I think having them in a group and camps and all these mini camps that are going to happen is there'll be a lot of video information. There'll be a lot of one-on-ones. There'll be a lot of walkthroughs. There'll be a lot of strategy planning.
They're basically full time with Ireland from now on, from June.
Yeah, they'll have little breaks here and there and be released on weekends and stuff like that. And as I said, they're going to get back for 2 weeks off, and then it'll be pretty much every week.
Does that get intense?
It does, yeah. In 2007, when we went to the World Cup there, I think the criticism was a group of us went to Argentina, another group stayed at home, the perceived starters at that time, and then it was just, we had a couple of weeks off and we met, and it was just really intensive because there was a big group and there was a lot of rugby contact, and there was a lot of on-feet stuff and maybe a little bit of that fatigue. Hindsight's a great thing, you know. If we did well at that World Cup, it would have been the perfect plan. Yeah. But I think it is, and Joel understand that, it's having the players in great condition, because there's no point in having them really rugby fired up to speed in the rugby skills and the specifics if they're fatigued and the power and the strength and the fitness isn't there. So it's getting that balance right with Jason Cowan, and he's very experienced. He's done a fantastic job with him.
We talked a bit about Tommy O'Donnell. He's going to be in the squad, do you think?
I think Tommy will come back, and you know, the lack of depth maybe in the 7 position, I think, you know, Van der Fleer, Geordie Murphy, and then it's probably Tommy, Nick Timoney, Max Deegan, Rhys Ruddock, can they play there? O'Mahony can play there. But you want specific positions covered, and I think Tommy, you know, he's someone who's had a lot of injuries like Sean O'Brien the last couple of years, and he's someone who could come back into the mix and could do a really good job. He's a brilliant athlete, he's a natural 7, and he could kind of knock on the door as well a little bit. I think Max Deegan could knock on the door a little bit in the back row as well. So they'll be all on their toes in the next while, but there's no one going to kind of jump out. I was going through names. Tom Farrell, the Connacht centre, who's had a really good season, could be in the mix. You think Henshaw, Ringrose, Aki, Farrell, they're probably the 4 who've those 4 positions nailed down. Someone like Adam Byrne could grab the attention as a winger. Stockdale could put pressure as a fullback. He's played a few there, so there could be a bit of switching around, but there's going to be no real bolters going to come out of the blue here.
All right, Alan, good stuff. Thanks for that. We'll talk to you again about what you think of the actual squad when it gets announced. Now, assessing Ireland's starting 15 for the Rugby World Cup, Brian O'Driscoll thinks Leinster's Jack Conan has now played himself ahead of Munster's CJ Stander in the pecking order. Have a look.
Jack Conan in his team ahead of CJ Stander at 8 now.
I think for me, the weekend decided that in my head. I guess with Jack, he said it himself that this is a really big season for him, an important season, and he's made incremental improvements throughout the season, but in the big games, and particularly on the weekend, I think he really stood up. What he's offered, slightly different to CJ, is CJ just, I feel, has become a little bit one-dimensional. You know he's going to carry hard, you know he's unlikely to offload, he's unlikely to pass. I think Jack has brought a lot more to his game. He's brought that offloading game, he caught a couple of kickoffs and immediately released James Lowe up the touchline and away they're gone. Yeah. And I don't think we get that with CJ. I think he's just become a little bit stale and a little bit predictable. And whereas Jack, I think, has really progressed. So for me, I'm intrigued to see what Joe Schmidt does in August. Does he change his number 8 that has been there for the last 2, 3, 4 years since Jamie Heaslip's retirement? His go-to guy who's an automatic selection, or do they bring in the guy who's fresh and in form and playing with a lot of confidence as well and bringing a real versatility to his game? So, I think at the moment there's just a little bit of a changing of the guard there.
Interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Joe Schmidt thinks the changing of the guard has happened, and we don't really get to know that until the first game of the World Cup, because let's face it, unless somebody stings the joint out in the pre-World Cup warm-ups, they don't really matter.
No.
They're about establishing, are you fit? If you've come back from injury, are you fully fit? Do you justify your spot on the plane? And otherwise, from memory, I don't remember anybody making a significant play in those World Cup warm-ups. I don't even think that the Conor Murray playing his way into the team happens in the World Cup warm-up so much as happens in training camp, and what happens in the World Cup warm-ups is almost still irrelevant. Need to go back and think about that, but
yeah, the only thing that could happen is an injury. Like when you speak about Tommy O'Donnell there, he'll be the first person to tell you how significant those World Cup games, those warm-up games can be, given that ended his World Cup hopes against Wales, I think, wasn't it, in the build-up game in the last World Cup. But just listening to Alan there a few moments ago, it is a really long build-up to a World Cup, isn't it? It's like so different to the football one, where it's like your season ends, you get a week off, and then you've got a couple of weeks, 3-4 max, and then you're into tournament mode. And I wonder, is that like an additional reason why it's tougher for teams with the season up here in the Northern Hemisphere ending at this time of year, that not only do you have to kind of change your strength conditioning a little bit, you can't just ride the crest of momentum into the World Cup, but also you've got to try and keep things fresh over a long period of time.
yeah, so I mean, it absolutely depends on whether or not you're successful, because if you're successful, everybody goes, you took the break and you were fresh,
Yeah.
or you were street smart and battle hardened at the end of the season, and like, I don't know is the answer. I don't know if anybody knows, really.
I think there's
more
staleness can set in quite a bit, can't it? And I'm sure they've thought about this so much over the last 4 years, and it didn't seem that was ever an issue last time out. It wasn't staleness; it was pure injury.
How did Josh van der Veer play the way he did? How was he up to rugby speeds and rugby smarts after that injury? Whatever way they got him back to that level and got his eye in, like, if they can do that for everybody, staleness isn't an issue.
No, that's true.
And maybe he's just a remarkable athlete/player, and he plays a position where the technicalities of it aren't stuff that go rusty, and maybe his passing would have been a bit rusty if we'd seen him throwing out 40-yard passes, and if that was his job. I don't know. But
he's suddenly become up there. I don't want to overstate things, but he's just on the rung below Sexton, Murray and Ty Furlong.
Is he below those players? He is not below those players. He is absolutely at that level now, because we have nobody else.
That's it.
Well, until like Tommy O'Donnell hasn't played enough minutes for us over the last 3 seasons for us to go, it's okay. If Tommy O'Donnell is fit and it looks like he is, then we'll be grand. He hasn't played enough, so you would say that, and also the replacement from Van der Fleer to Tommy O'Donnell is so significant, again, in the absence of any recent evidence from O'Donnell. You're like, woo, so we'd have him right there. Him and Ty Furlong.
The two irreplaceables at this point. Yeah, it's like wrap him in cotton wool. He is the one player that you just can't, especially the way Ireland play, seeing him go down would be a catastrophe. It would be. We've
got to learn. We've got to give players a year off in the next World Cup cycle. If the World Cup is the be all and end all, and we know it is, then you've got to give players a year off, or 6 months, or 9 months off. 9 rugby months, effectively, it's a year off.
Do you think if you were talking to Johnny Sexton and said you're taking a year off, he would have said, "Yeah, thanks. I'll see you in 9 months," or whatever it may be?
If we could actually put some science behind it and say you could potentially play in the 2023 World Cup if you take a year off in 2017, and the trade-off is I'm giving you an extra 3 years or 2 years at the end of your career, who says no to that?
Yeah, it's true, because you want to earn more in the end.
But irrespective of that, it's like, you know, I can prolong your career by giving you some time off here, and it's not injury enforced, it's not concussion recovery time. Like, I know we were talking about this with Alan Quinlan yesterday, and he was saying, they all had a bit of time off in rehab, but it's a completely different time. Like, if you ever talk to any of these players about rehabbing from injury, it's excruciating mentally, because you're going in, you're watching your friends go and do the thing that you're supposed to be doing, getting paid to do, and you're going into a separate room and talking to people whose job it is to try and make you feel okay again, and you're in a bit of pain. Whereas if you actually had a proper year off to go and relax and decompress and then come back, like...
And is your suggestion a full 12 months? That after a summer tour, you're done until the following calendar year's pre-season?
Screw the summer tour.
Like, or even before the summer tour, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So summer to summer, full season, not after the Six Nations.
So it doesn't matter when it happens.
Yeah. The reason why I asked that is that after the Six Nations, it's like, right, I'm going to take my year out now. And Leinster are like, we've got a big Champions Cup quarter-final there coming up. If you just hang on for another 3 months there, and then it's like, the Lions want you as well. So
you obviously would do it after Lions.
After Lions.
Like the year after Lions and the year before World Cup. Or the year before Lions, if you wanted. And come
Clearly
back
the case studies are there that this works. McCaw, Carter, Izan Asewa, it does work.
But he says another evidence, yeah.
But actually stacking it up in figures, I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure it has to have some sort of actual work. I'd be very, very interested in how the RFU might pursue this. I guess it's a trade-off. Like, I mean, you're saying to the players, stay loyal to us. You might not earn as much as you earn in France, but we're going to look after you. You're not going to play as many games, and we're going to get 2 or 3 extra years out of you as well.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something worth pursuing, and I love the way we're already talking about hindsight with respect to this World Cup.
Well, it's like we just lost Sean O'Brien.
Yeah.
It's
Now
his injury profile was such that this could have happened at any point.
At least we only have 7 days to bounce back from this, like in France, or where was that? Like in London in 2015.
Yeah,
that was a quicker turnaround time wasn't exactly ideal in that situation.
This next slot is our power ranking slot, which has become known as.
Well, it did become known as Two Pricks, One List.
So you're a prick this week, Owen.
I am. It's the most correct, absolutely flawless list of 33 to 1. Bulletproof, waterproof, whatever you want to say. These are 100% true, and if you disagree with them, you're wrong. We're going to start at number 33 in our power rankings of Gaelic football teams at the moment, and it is New York, a non-mover, and it's pretty much non-movers all the way down to 25. So we've still got Antrim at 32, London at 31, Wexford at 30, Leitrim at 29, Sligo at 28, Wicklow at 27, Waterford at 26. Now Carlow have dropped 2 places to 25 after they were hammered
Only
by
2?
Meath. Only 2. I would have them ahead of Waterford, Wicklow, Sligo, Leitrim, etc., for now, for sure.
All right. I'm going to give you that.
Let's move on. The next page, we get to number 24. Limerick move up 1 and Tipperary move up 1 as a result of Carlow's drop. We'll be awaiting with bated breath to see how Limerick get on in the next round. You still maintain that they should be ahead of Tipperary. Now, Tipperary are set for a big jump if they win. Now they go to play down in the first round of the qualifiers.
It's in Tip.
It's in Tip.
Yeah.
There was actually a bit of confusion around that yesterday. So regardless of where that's on, that is an extremely tough game. It would still be them taking out somebody who are higher than them on this list. That would be a huge thing for them to bump up. So it is a crucial couple of weeks for them in terms of who is actually right in this. We will have a decision on who is right.
Jim Kearns will have that up on the dressing room wall, right?
Well, I'm sure they will. If they didn't, I will be personally insulted. Offaly have moved down 1 to 22. Louth are down 2 to 21. They were pulled apart by Dublin, and it kind of feels harsh to move them down to.
Really? So they not have got they've 500-600 whatever the score was that they conceded.
Yeah, like they still beat Wexford in the first round of Leinster in their first game in Leinster, getting a win in the championship. You do get a bit of credit in the bank. Good league campaign as well.
Unless you're Limerick.
One of the reasons why they're down to unless you're Limerick. One of the reasons they're down to is because Longford are up to very, very good performance against Kildare at the weekend. You will say that it's because Kildare aren't exactly great shakes at the moment.
No, Longford did well.
I say Longford putting up 315 is cause for them to rise. But their ceiling at the moment for me is 20, because ahead of them I've got Derry at 19. They're up 1 despite not playing at the weekend because of Louth's drop. They lost by 6 points to Tyrone.
Down Tip isn't down.
It's in down.
It isn't down.
That's what I thought.
What happened?
There was literally 3 Twitter accounts online yesterday said it was in Park Esler, and 3 of them were saying it was in Semple Stadium. I don't know how it got confused. I wasn't listening to the radio yesterday morning. I was here. At 18 and 17, we've got 2 non-movers. Down at 18, Cork at 17. Neither of them played at the weekend, so they're staying as they are. Cork yet to play as well. They're out this weekend. We'll move on. Clare are at 16, another non-mover, and Westmeath played Laois at the weekend. Some people may say I should have had Westmeath ahead of Laois. I didn't. I had Laois ahead of Westmeath. And who won at the weekend? That's right. Laois beat Westmeath by 2 points, so they stay where they are. Laois at 14, Westmeath behind them at 15. Kildare also a non-mover at 13, despite the fact that they drew with Longford. They're lucky.
I would have moved them down a bit.
I just can't put them below Laois or Westmeath or Clare or Cork at this point.
Laois are already through to the semi-finals.
Yeah.
Kildare might not make it through.
They might not make it through, but we'll wait and see. This is a team that made it to the Super 8s last year.
Here's a quick question for you,
Granted,
right?
they're not as good this year.
Here's a quick question for you. If you're Longford or Kildare and you've got Dublin in the semi-finals, and Dublin are going to beat you 637 to 9 points, or maybe 1-9, would you rather face Carlow in the next round, having been beaten in a close replay in Tullamore in the qualifiers, and take your chances there? Or would you rather get spanked by Dublin and take your chances in the next round of the qualifiers when a lot of other good teams get in?
Yeah,
you're coming straight off the spanking.
You have to say that the absolute destruction that Dublin will do to you will have a mental impact. There's no way it can't not.
Unless you put out your under-21 team and you can, what are you under 20? What are you going to do?
I'm sure all those under 21s aren't allowed to play senior, because then you'll scupper your under 20 championship. Because
you know what I mean? Would some
the minors.
You're like players from 16 to 31.
just send out Emmett Bolton. He'd be like, I thought this was a Masters game. Send out 15 retired players.
Bit harsh. I was like, what did I do to you, Owen?
Well, no, I mean all retired players. I mean, people that have left the Clare. Recent retirees.
There's a good case that Emmett Bolton could do a very good job for that team. He might be one of our best tacklers if he was to play at the moment.
I'm not saying he wouldn't be. All I'm saying is throw out recent retirees.
I've got your back, Emmett. Don't worry.
We're moving on to Fermanagh 12. They're down 1 after their defeat to Donegal at the weekend. I can see Fermanagh precipitating down these power rankings. They could even get knocked out in round 1 of the qualifiers. In fact, I'd imagine they're favoured to do so. They're up against Monaghan. Armagh are also down 1. Bit harsh on them after their win against Down, but it's because Meath are up 2. Very, very impressive against Carlow, 218 to 9 points. And then ahead of them, inside the top 10, we still got Cavan at 9.
Hang on. Who did Armagh beat? Stick that back up.
Down.
Can we see that one again?
Armagh beat Down.
Right. So Armagh beat Down. They're at 11. And Meath beat who?
Carlow.
And they're 10.
Yeah.
So, where are Carlow and Down, respectively?
Down are 18, Carlow are 25.
Right. You're a clown. This makes no sense.
How does that not make sense?
It makes no sense. It's completely inconsistent. It's complete.
How is it inconsistent?
It makes no sense.
Okay, I'll ask you a question.
Armagh should be ahead of Meath.
I'll ask you a question.
Armagh just beat a team who was vastly superior to the team Meath just beat, and Meath are ahead of Armagh.
Let me ask you a question.
It makes no sense.
Let me ask you a question.
No, it makes no sense.
Just two questions actually. How much did
changing the rules now? Come on, quick.
How much did Armagh beat Down by? How much did Meath beat Carlow by? The answer is 1 point, and the answer to the other question is 15 points.
They beat a good team.
7
in
points.
A close game.
7 points separate the two opposition in the power rankings. It's not like they're only one graphic apart. They're only
it's 7. It's
only 7
out of 33.
Doesn't matter.
It's a massive amount.
They would still, according to these rankings, they would still be tier 2 counties.
It doesn't matter.
14-point disparity.
You have to have credibility.
I have tons of credibility.
No.
Meath made it to a Division 2 final as well. They've been excellent.
This is basically like letting the dragon speak in the last episode of Game of Thrones. Like, I just decided this doesn't matter anymore. It has to have consistency, otherwise
it has beautiful consistency. It's not based solely on the fact that they beat a team ranked here. It's also about the magnitude of the win, the manner in which they won, and the comfort at which they look at their plays. Meath look like a top 10 team to me.
Dublin have gone up in the
almost
rankings
look like that
because they beat Louth by so many.
They what?
Dublin have gone up in the rankings from number 1. They're now 1+, 1 star, whatever it is that you think.
How long have you been working on that line for? That was a very, very good gag there. We're going to move into the top 8, and we've got Monaghan, who are down 1 again. They, of course, got knocked out of Ulster by Cavan last weekend, and the reason they're down 1 is because Roscommon have moved up after their win against Mayo. Now. Why? Okay, let's come back to this in a moment, because that's just an absolutely ridiculous notion. We've got Donegal at 6, a non-mover.
What?
Mayo have dropped 2 as a result of their defeat to Roscommon. Tyrone,
Where was the Mayo Roscommon game? It was in Mayo. They got beaten at home. The power rankings are supposed to reflect their current rankings. What just happened? The reality of Roscommon just beat Mayo, and they're 3 points behind them.
This is exactly. You can't just base it on the fact of one result. On all the evidence we saw all spring, on all the evidence that.
And now we know new things. When I get new information.
This could be the start of a decline for Mayo, for sure. If they're unimpressive in round 2 of the qualifiers, I promise everybody out there, I will drop Mayo down. But I want to wait and see. They've dropped 2 places in a fairly congested top 10 here. They've I was actually cautious of moving Tyrone and Kerry ahead of them because of the opposition that Tyrone
now 2 places is a big deal, but the 7 places between Down and Carlow is not that big a deal. They're right beside each other.
That's because of it's down lower in the rankings. Up at the top, the gaps are bigger. And just to complete the top 3 for anybody who's just listening online, Tyrone are 3, Kerry are 2, and Dublin are 1. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to put Kerry up to 2 because that's very anti how I would do this. I wanted to try and keep them as low as possible. But I just saw no other option here. Maybe some people might argue that you should have Tyrone ahead of them. People were tweeting at the weekend saying maybe Mayo aren't the best team in Connacht anymore. Galway should definitely be ahead of them. Roscommon should possibly be ahead of them as well.
Yes.
Currently, it is this close to Mayo going below Galway. I promise you that. I'm not just clinging on to my poetic idea that Mayo are the best team in Connacht. It is that close.
He's making a small, doing the
Mayo
pinch of the fingers.
Mayo could drop in the next power rankings again, even if they win. If it's an unimpressive win, and it will be behind Galway. I still think we need to see Roscommon win the Connacht final, and win the Connacht final, and then we may see them jump above Mayo. Like, we will just have to see how real this Mayo malaise is. Like, for me, it seemed like there were very tangible things where Mayo can improve on, and we will see a bounce back.
There's no punishment for teams performing badly.
They dropped 2 places.
Oh, 2 places.
That's a huge drop in that time of the table, in that area of the table.
Beating an actual opponent in this thing doesn't matter to you at all.
It does. Roscommon are up 1, Mayo are down 2. It does matter. It's literally affected the whole spectrum. I can't put Roscommon ahead of Donegal, Galway, Mayo, Tyrone, Kerry. I'm sorry. I just can't do that.
You could have done it.
I just can't do that because
it's your list. You can do what you want.
I can, of course I can. And I am going to stick with the correct thing here, which is that Roscommon are the 7th best team in the country.
Right. 1 prick and a list. Is that what it's called?
Don't be so harsh on yourself.
All right, more power rankings next week whenever Owen recovers from Primavera. In one aspect of Luke McGrath's game, at least, Brian O'Driscoll now believes that the Leinster scrum half is playing to the same standard as Munster and Ireland's Conor Murray.
I've always waxed lyrically about how good Conor Murray is about defending, and I talk about defending and tackling being 2 things. Defending is about understanding where the problem may come. Tackling is actually the act of it. And Conor Murray has been brilliant at both, but in particular at identifying where the problem is. For me, Luke McGrath is right up there now defensively, of being able to, and for such a considerably smaller man, to take the punishment that he took, the Fraser Brown hit that was pretty questionable, could easily have been a yellow card. But come back, and he made 1 tackle where off a scrum on the left side where he would have been defending first man, and they did a switchblade down the blind side. He had to accelerate to the open field, then change direction and run back around, and he was the one that actually made the tackle on Sam Johnson. Hit him, gave him a dead leg. Sam Johnson was gone 5 minutes later.
Yeah, high praise indeed for Luke McGrath and Brian O'Driscoll. Now Phil Egan is here. Phil, what do you make of the power rankings?
I think you've been a bit harsh on Owen there with the Mayo Roscommon thing. Like, if they meet next week, Mayo win that game.
But they're not meeting next week.
No, but...
So in reality, this fantasy world that you're all living in, where like, ooh, maybe they'll make a comeback through the back door and perhaps they'll reach the All-Ireland semi-final and we can all have Kerry and Mayo play again. It doesn't exist. The reality is Roscommon just went and beat them on their own ground.
Yeah,
and they get no credit for it.
They did.
No credit.
They moved up a place.
Unbelievable
That's
win.
Credit. Moving up a place when you're in the top 8 is honestly the biggest compliment.
Armagh got no credit for beating down.
Seriously?
Again, going on the road to a place that they never win and beating a team after extra time.
Honestly, Ger, moving up 1 place in the top 8 is like the biggest honour you can bestow on any team. Kerry would rather move up to number 1 in the power rankings than win Sam Maguire this year, I guarantee you that.
We can come back to it in a few months. That's the beauty of it. It's all on film.
We'll be back on it next week.
Going to start with Ireland head coach Joe Schmidt. He's going to name his extended training squad for the Rugby World Cup this afternoon. Expected to be 45 players in that squad, and then obviously he'll have to whittle it down to 31 before the squad heads off to Japan. Rob Kearney will be one of those players included. We now know that Kearney will still be at Leinster after the World Cup, because the 33-year-old confirmed yesterday he's agreed a 9-month contract which will kick in after the World Cup and keep him at Leinster until the end of next season. It's just a case of crossing the T's and dotting the I's for Kearney. He's won 90 caps in his Ireland career, and the 33-year-old told Joe on Off the Ball last night that he never wanted to leave Ireland.
Get into, a little bit of a stage now where, I've played in 4 finals over the last few years. I've been at a club 14 years. The possibility maybe of getting 100 national caps is there in the future. You're with all your best friends. I'm with my brother. I live in Dublin. If you have to take a little bit of a hit in your salary, well then, suck it up.
Holders Derry City came from a goal down to beat Finn Harps 2-1 after extra time last night in the quarterfinals of the EA Sports Cup. David Parkhouse scored 7 minutes from time to cancel out Nathan Boyle's second half goal for Harps, and Parkhouse also scored for the Candy Stripes in extra time. Dundalk are into the semi-finals as well after a 3-1 win at home to UCD. Brian Gartland, John Mountney and Georgie Kelly with the goals, and Bohemians beat Cork City 2-0 at Dalymount Park. Ross Tierney and Danny Mandrew were on target for Bows. Waterford, the other team, into the last 4 thanks to a 1-0 win away to Bray. Before that game, all those games rather, Aston Villa booked their place back in the Premier League. 3-year absence, but they beat Derby 2-1 at Wembley in the Championship playoff final. El Ghazi and McGinn on target for the newly promoted side. Jack Marriott grabbed the late consolation for Frank Lampard's team. Villa captain Jack Grealish, many tipped him to leave if they didn't get promoted, but manager Dean Smith doesn't believe that would have been the case.
I had no qualms in giving him the captaincy. He's took on that responsibility admirably, and he's a real great kid. And even if we hadn't gone up, I still think it would have been tough to prize him away from this football club that he loves so much.
I mean, I kind of think that might have been true as well. You know?
Absolutely.
That because Smith came in, because they started to play well, and because there was a future that you could actually lay out, you could breadcrumb away back to the Premier League, and because he was playing so well, and like, it wouldn't have stopped him really making the England squad if he continued to play that well. Doug's opinion on Twitter says, I think you overrate Grealish. McGinn outshines him every game. And these aren't one of the other things. It's like, I also just like Jack Grealish.
Different type of player. Like, I think Grealish is technically a better player, but I agree. Like, McGinn has been brilliant.
He's more effective. Like, is he the type of player? Quite often you have that where you have two superstars in that position getting promoted, and it's quite often the lesser light that does the better in the Premier League. I do feel that. Maybe fear from an Aston Villa perspective that Grealish's potential is just so sky high that once he gets onto the big stage again next season, he's just going to thrive under those lights.
Yeah, but like, because the Premier League is so rich, the reason to leave won't ever be money in the future. Like, Villa will be able to match pretty much almost anything if they just
in the
decide,
bottom 14.
But if they decide that, well, even then, like, so if the turnover on the basis of the next TV deal is as big as everybody thinks it's going to be for these clubs, they can afford to ring fence 10, 12, 14 million for a couple of players who will sell all of their season tickets for them. And if Jack Grealish is one of those players, you can match pretty much anything. So it's then down to whether or not they can build a team around him that can compete and he wants to stay, or like, I think you're going to see more Matt Letizier's, basically, is what I'm saying. Some of these players who come through, unless...
That's a good shout, actually.
They absolutely decide that they want to play Champions League season in, season out.
Yeah, that idea of like teams outside the top six actually breaking the bank on a coterie of players with huge money, just based on their wages, no matter what it is. Like, you could do a lot worse as a business model from a football club. Focus on those players who are loyal, who have proven record, and also have future potential in them, which Jack Grealish kind of ticks all those three boxes.
I just think he loves playing for Villa so much. It's going to be hard, as Dean Smith said, to prize him away. He's worshipped there. He's the captain. Just hope he gets a new set of boots before next season.
Well, they only come out for special occasions, I think.
Yeah. Well, how many special occasions? Like every weekend's a special occasion in the Premier League, Ger.
Who are they? Nike? I didn't see what make they were, but whoever it is should be like, come on, and we'll get you a new pair of boots.
It kind of reminded me of a leather, you know, those old leather balls that you...
Yes, exactly, yeah.
You kept playing with.
Yeah, because they got really light and you could control them really easily.
Yeah, but if you headed them, you'd cut your head because
when they were wet.
Yeah.
But I can't tell what make
Air Nike, yeah.
Where's the swoosh?
You can tell on the left.
And the front?
There. Yeah.
Is that a swoosh? Sure?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, everybody's saying yeah.
So we've talked about what's next for Villa and Jack Grealish, but I suppose the question has to be asked, what's next for Frank Lampard? He says he's loved working at Derby, expects to honour his 2-year contract, so obviously 1 year left, and with plenty of speculation linking Lampard to his old club Chelsea. He said talk of a return to Stamford Bridge is irrelevant, and he says Derby now face a busy summer to continue their progression.
There's a work in recruitment, big time for us, to bring in players to keep the club moving forward. So it's probably better that I actually talk about it after the conversation to a degree, because I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Could be a lot of recruitment at Newcastle this summer. We don't know, but the Bin Zayed group said that they have agreed terms to buy Newcastle. They hope to complete the deal at the earliest opportunity. Newcastle owner Mike Ashley's in talks to sell the club to Sheikh Khaled, a relative of Manchester City owner Sheikh Mansour. It's reported the deal for Newcastle is worth £350 million. Newcastle finished 13th in the Premier League this season under Rafa Benitez. His contract is up on the 30th of June.
Yeah, and so maybe the new owners, they want their own thing, and Rafa's not that guy.
Oh, that is not a way to start your ownership at Newcastle, by saying, yeah, here we are, Rafa, good luck.
Who would be the best manager in the Premier League if money was no object? If everybody was Manchester City? Would Pep Guardiola definitely be best manager? Would it be Klopp? Would Rafa be the third best manager? Could it be higher?
Pep is definitely top.
Is he?
Yeah.
Jurgen Klopp?
No.
What?
No, look, Pep.
All. So
If you had a bottomless pit of money.
no, if you'd FIFA and they all had the exact same 11.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. So never mind the bottomless pit. So they're the same players, same squad, same 22 registered players or whatever it is. Pep better than Klopp? I'd like to see that game.
Yeah, like I know the argument with Man City is it's all money, but they've had money before Guardiola came in.
Not as much.
Yeah, he's just I suppose. You think of all the fullbacks they went out and bought after, and they bought a keeper after the Claudio Bravo thing didn't work out. But the thing is, I just think Guardiola, like they got 100 points, they got 98 points.
How many Champions Leagues did he win with the best team in the world?
2.
Yeah. Like, I know the Champions League, it's knockout. Stuff can happen, weird things happen. Although they got knocked out over 2 legs and all the times they got knocked out, it wasn't ever over a single game. I don't know. Pep is brilliant and has changed football, and Spain won 2 tournaments on the back of playing the same football that he played. But I don't know. I mean,
It's interesting. Like, I do think that Pep doesn't get enough credit for actually maximising the insane resources that he does have. Like, that is something you have to do. That's the reason why I brought this up, the maximisation of resources, which is something that Rafa's done, I feel, as good as anybody else in the league. But that's not the same thing as saying he's as good a manager as Pep Guardiola. But if he did pare it all back, Rafa, third best manager in the league, I don't think it's the most outrageous thing.
And here's the thing, like, if we're judging this on a 2-legged match between 2 teams who are exactly the same, I can see a way that Rafa thwarts those teams and wins on penalties after 2-0 all draws. Like, you can totally see that.
Like, I think
it's genius.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about, say, Newcastle are to get all this money, they would want the football to be played in the Pep Guardiola way.
Well, actually, here's the thing.
And so that's why getting rid of him isn't the worst thing, because it's going to happen eventually. Just get whoever that's going to be.
Who do you bring in?
The key question here is that if the 11s are made up of 11 David Silvas, Pep wins. If the team is made up of 11 John Joe Shelbys,
I thought you were going to say Solomon Rondon. That'd be a pretty formidable team.
Turquoise.
Tottenham striker Harry Kane says he's ready to face Liverpool in the Champions League final on Saturday. If selected, the Spurs captain hasn't played since he suffered an ankle injury in their quarter-final first leg win over Manchester City in early April. He's already been included in the England squad for the Nations League semi-final against the Netherlands on the 6th of June, but no Kieran Trippier in that 23-man squad. This is a guy that, remember we did World Cup Daily last year? Did he make your team of the tournament?
Did he make it?
Kieran Trippier. I put him in my team of the tournament. He was.
Yeah, he would have done. I'm trying to think. Who else do you have at right back in the tournament that played really well last?
Somebody could have put in Pavard.
Pavard made mine, I think. Just they both scored outrageous goals, so that kind of cancels each other out.
But it's like ever since the World Cup, it's like he cashed in all his chips for the World Cup, and he's just been really poor since.
Like, speaking of somebody who didn't get that move, has Pavard got that move yet? No.
Yeah, he's gone to.
He's gone.
Bayern Munich.
He's gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Trippier, possibly beaten by Benjamin Pavard then in the overall world of football, looking down at him.
I think I went for Trippier because he was a more natural fullback. Pavard was kind of a centre back who played on the right. But
I don't know. I don't work. Like, do we make our team at the tournament? Yeah. When it comes down to it, Trippier was definitely kind of more of a face of the tournament. But then again, we're kind of. The England wave was something that influenced us all, I think.
Yeah, we got carried away. The first round action continues at the French Open today. Defending women's champion Simona Halep is in action, as is the number 1 seed Naomi Osaka. Serena Williams survived a first round scare yesterday. She lost the first set to Vitalia Diachenko, but she won the next 2 sets to book her place in the second round. No problems for Rafa Nadal and Novak Djokovic, both comfortably into the second round.
Okay, no sign of Serena slowing down just yet. Can 2 people from the same family own 2 different Premier League clubs? Hashtag Man City, hashtag Newcastle United, asks Seamus on Twitter. I mean, they're far enough. They're not like the same family, really.
I did see somebody suggest that, is this a way for Man City to make sure they don't lose to Newcastle next season? Like they did at St James's Park.
Question from Joseph going, would it be good for the league to have another super rich club so at least there's not just one?
Well, ideally, it's better to have 20 super rich clubs than what are we what are you saying? Super rich. Let's go with 6. Let's just go with 5.
City rich.
4. Yeah. Okay. So it's only City.
I mean, like, there comes a point when the money, the difference between the money that you have and the money that the second and third place teams have, it's diminishing returns, right? Because you can spend $1 billion on your team and you can buy the best group of players, but you do definitely, the second best group of players will be pretty good and the third best group of players should be pretty good. Like, so you would expect that the other teams should be able to catch up at some point over the coming seasons.
It's just going to be interesting to see if it does happen, what kind of team Newcastle have and how quick they move. Like, is that the end of Iosi Perez? What a great season he's had.
Well, so maybe
or does he play up front with Mbappe?
Maybe he's Matt Doherty, you know. He comes up and he rises to the better talent that you put around him suddenly.
Do they go for Mbappe or Neymar?
Neymar.
Mbappe.
No, of course. Neymar is the Newcastle signing. That's like, Mbappe would be a brilliant signing. Neymar is the one that they'll accidentally...
Neymar has to look for Newcastle on the map.
You've got to go, Phil, but who is Mbappe going to be playing for next season?
Real Madrid.
Well, Hazard's going to be playing for them as well.
Get
and Pogba. How can they all be playing for them?
Forget Pogba, get Hazard, get Mbappe, and just become the best team in Europe once again.
If you're City?
If you're Real Madrid.
If you're City?
If you're City...
You sign Kylian Mbappe?
Yes. Right. Yeah, well...
That's not financially fair, though, is it?
When you talk about diminishing returns... Like,
that's the end of it. I'm after killing Mbappe. There's diminishing returns, but because you can't put Aguero on your team anymore, and Aguero gets pissed off and leaves, right? But
so who do you like? Is Mbappe leading the line? Is he your number 9?
Yeah, Jesus isn't good enough.
I don't know. Is Mbappe not better out on the right?
And you could sell 3 players, and that would finance your Mbappe deal,
and do it in a fair way.
Yeah, and that's what we're all about, fairness here. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million. Reflecting on the decision-making in Leinster's Pro 14 final defeat of Glasgow, Brian O'Driscoll admitted he was surprised by some of Johnny Sexton's calls.
I thought there was a couple of really surprising moments. I thought to start it towards the end rather than at the beginning. I thought 18-10 not kicking the goal for Leinster. I know it's easy to say that retrospectively, but if I'm captain there's no way I don't look to get to 21-10 in a final.
Yeah.
I know it's still 2 scores, but it's another goal. It's a try and a goal kick versus 2 tries.
They had worked the scoreboard earlier in the game. They had taken points,
and Johnny had missed a couple of kicks as well. So they'd still taken their points, and it wasn't vintage Leinster from that perspective where they go to the corner, back themselves. And when it's rainy, and the likelihood it's going to be defences on top is going to be low scoring. So 3 points on a day like that could be 5 or 6 on a dry day. So I really was surprised at that. I know they had a man in the bin, they fancied their chances in the scrum, they had the ascendancy, but the benefit of scoring a try versus 3 points, it wasn't that enormous. Yes, it would have been a converted try, would have meant 3-score game, but I really was surprised at that, watching it that someone, and Johnny's ultimately the one, he's the captain and he gets to make that decision, and maybe his pack said, listen, give us another scrum, we really fancy it, but they didn't come up with the score that would have been a safe final 7 or 8 minutes. And I found that on another day we could be having this conversation saying, what a crazy decision that ended up being. It hasn't come to pass with that, but I was surprised at that.
There you go. A few notes on the performance from Brian O'Driscoll for Leinster and Johnny Sexton in particular.
Yeah, it's like a very different conversation you're having. But it seems to be around the same idea of being ruthless or going for things when perhaps they shouldn't go for things. Like, I'm making a comparison here between their game management at the end of the game against Glasgow and at halftime, coming up to halftime against Saracens in the Champions Cup final. The intention was still the same.
Yeah.
Be as ruthless as possible.
Yeah, and look, I think that that was an opportunity to win the game. You shoot your shot. You're Leinster. You're the reigning champions. And against Saracens, I think it's 17-3, that game's over. I think Leinster would grind that out and cheat and kick and bite and fight and lie their way through the second half in the way that a streetwise team can do. And so they saw that and they went for it, and that's exactly what you should do. That's the glory of sport.
Yeah.
As Danny Blanchflower said, whatever it was he said, that beautiful thing that he said that I can't remember now, about we're in this for the glory and we're not in it to win, we're in it for the glory. We're not in it to draw nil all. So There you go. That's what I think.
And you don't think it's too far removed from the approach at the end of the Glasgow game? As in, go for the try.
Well, there's
your opportunity to, put over 2 tries between the teams.
How long was gone again when that decision was made?
Good question.
Yeah, I think that I think they're different because that was open play, and this is a calm moment where we're going to reflect on
Yeah,
this,
there is that.
And we're doing it from a big lead and time is eking out. But yeah, anyway, so is this your last day?
Yes.
For a week?
For a week. Yeah, you'll be training hard while I'm gone, I presume. Training tomorrow night.
BMW and Triathlon Ireland are challenging the OTB team to hashtag Try for Pieta this summer and raise funds for Pieta House. For more information, check out triathlonireland.com. You'll see the link for more info on the hashtag Try for Pieta, TRI as in triathlon, and for the number 4 and Pieta as in Pieta House. BMW, proud partner of Triathlon Ireland, title sponsor of the BMW Triathlon National Series, 17 of the most exciting triathlon races in Ireland. Doing a triathlon, it turns out, is easier than you think. Even myself and Owen are going to be able to do a leg of it.
Wishful thinking? We will. We'll definitely get over the finish line in some manner.
Will you need to stop?
Yes.
I might also need to stop. Have a little rest.
Yeah, it's
only 20k.
From what I can gather. Now, granted, it's not. My knowledge is very shallow here.
Hook or by crook is the one we're doing.
Yeah. But from what I can gather, stopping is not a good idea when you're on a bike. As in, it's way more difficult to actually get
rebuild
back up.
momentum.
Yeah, exactly. Even to stop pedaling for a moment or two can scupper everything.
How is you've been like working out on a daily basis after all the trash talk you did at the start of this, which has dried up a little bit, Owen, I have to say.
The trash talk is a thing of the past. That's done. I'm never going back there again.
You're humbled.
Oh, well, beyond humbled. Humbled and broken.
So how much are you going to beat me?
I'm not going to beat you, I don't think. I don't think I'm going to finish this thing.
Come on, I'm twice your age. You must be able to beat me.
God, it's going to be something that'll haunt me for the rest of my life if I do end up losing this thing. No pressure on me or anything, and I hate to let all my fans down, but...
How is your preparation then this week on daily 15, 20, 25 kilometres a day, working up to 100 at the weekend?
Is that what you're supposed to be doing? I unfortunately have not been doing any preparation, but next week is a new week.
What are you doing this week, Owen? Where are you going?
I'll be at Primavera in Barcelona, which I've heard is not ideal preparation for a triathlon, funnily enough. I don't think there's too many people who've gone there and then done a triathlon 10 days later or whatever it is, so I'm screwed basically, is the long and short of it. So at least my donation will be going to a very good cause.
That's it. And all this hard work has been for... to change your life. This is a reckoning for you.
I'm not going to lie, the feeling after the terrible feeling is a good feeling.
It is, isn't it?
It is a nice buzz, and it actually makes you... It's kind of like... It kind of erases a bit of the memory. It kind of just takes away the sort of horrifying images of Hoth Hill for a little while.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, this positive thing is way better than the negative of the negative thing.
The bit where you're going up Hoth Hill and your face is covered in your own snot and you're too tired to wipe it off.
I didn't get that far. That's an absolutely horrifying image.
People are talking to you and all you can do is grunt. Are you okay? It's like, not really. I mean, the fact that I can't take my hand off the wheel to do that, I just can't do it. I'm too tired. The sweat kind of encrusted and it there so long that it's kind of started to dry in and it's being replaced by new fresh sweat.
How many breakfasts have you ruined this morning with that? That is absolutely disgusting.
Well, it's just the truth. You've got to tell people the truth about these things. I mean, and then at the end you feel good. It's a bit like childbirth.
Oh, God. Like a newborn 42-year-old baby cycling up the Hoth Hill.
There certainly is much bodily fluid on display anyway.
Just bloody hell. That is disgusting.
Yeah.
Did you need to be bottle fed afterwards as well? Or whatever, I don't know. I don't know anything about childbirth.
Yeah, okay.
I'm in way too deep here.
Yeah, a little bit. Did you explain to everybody could you drink out of the bottle? Have you learned that?
No, I couldn't. I almost fell off the bike trying to get my bottle out. I can't cycle one-handed. I'm not a very good cyclist. That's one thing I've learned. Like, as in actually cycling the bike. As in
but that's
going in a straight line, going any direction. I can go maybe up a hill. The actual direction of going up a hill is actually the easy part, obviously.
Yeah, but that was the best part about this. You got a little bit of training and you got better at it as the training. It turns out training works.
Yes.
And that's what you've learned.
To be fair, Ian, our coach, was absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure there's many a moment when he was like, this is frustrating.
What have I got myself
into? But he remained patient at all times and hung with us at the back.
How do I avoid the reputational damage from being seen with these clowns?
Well, there is that for sure. Also, didn't get honked once. People obviously around that, nobody beeped the horn at us. People around that area of Dublin are obviously very used to cyclists. That was one of the big fears I had as well. Of
getting humiliated by the honkers.
Yeah, the motorists probably wouldn't be a fan of my cycling style, considering I can't cycle in a straight line. But so far, so good on that front.
Anyway, if you happen to be down around Dunmore East whenever Hooker by Crook is on, come and honk at myself and Eoin. We'll be at the back. You'll be a little bit ahead of me because you've got Joe on your team swimming.
I've got a feeling that Adrian is hustling us all.
I don't think so.
I think he's training every single day. He's going to be like Aquaman.
Well, that would be great, but I don't think so.
Like, you know the way you can put like a motor into a bike to make it go quicker? Like, what can you do as a cyclist or as a swimmer? You're kind of on your own. Like
flippers.
Flippers, yeah, that would definitely work. We'll just see a catamaran in the distance and Adrian will be on it going to 750 metres. I don't know. Yeah, I would say that I'll have a few minutes on me, which will make it more embarrassing when I eventually get pulled back to the pack of two.
A quick comment on the GAA structures and Kieran Donaghy's idea, which we're going to come back to on Shot Clock this week. What would it take for the GAA to consider implementing such a radical change? Probably some radical action from supporters, such as mass boycotting of games, buying jerseys, etc. I don't think there's any need for that. I think we've actually reached a point where everybody has realised it, and that's what has happened with the Fixtures Review Committee. And it looks like the president of the GAA has quietly announced something fairly radical.
Yeah.
Which... Now, you don't want to get your hopes up. You've been burned a lot by this before, where 3 proposals come out. One is the same as it always was, and it's dressed up with a few minor bits and pieces here. Oh, it'll be a calendar year, and we'll get rid of the O'Byrne Cup, but we'll run the league as it is, and we'll run the championship as it is. We'll just condense it a little bit, and the qualifiers will somehow become something different. And that's Proposal A. Proposal B is the one that everybody really wants. Proposal C is too radical. And actually, Proposal A is the one that gets through Congress. And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. Another 20 years before we can bring this back.
Yeah, there's actually that possibility for sure. Congress is the one massive asterisk beside all of this.
Well, you can always go around and offer everybody some floodlights in advance. What projects do we need to get this through, lads? This, and this are on my list.
Well, they'll have to. There's nothing kind of... That is literally how it'll have to happen. That is the only way you'll be able to get anything through Congress if you believe that this is the right thing for the association, because everybody will look out for their own.
Yeah, and then every county says, oh, I'm not going to vote unless I get something. And suddenly... Anyway, that's the worst, most cynical aspect of trying to get rules through, is that you definitely start to see counties trading off what their requirements are. So we'll see. But I think that it's an opportunity for the conversation to happen, and certainly having... the CPA involved is going to be interesting. And
maybe the counties that feel that they will be banished to a Tier 2 competition can actually look at what someone like Colin Bonner has done with the Carlow Hurlers by being in the Joe McDonagh Cup last year, building a bit of momentum through a different competition and getting yourself into the Leinster Championship to, in some matches, hold your own. That is just one of many examples that we've seen in the hurling formats down through the years.
Yeah, and so Carlow should be rewarded by central funding for their underage hurling structures. There should be an investment, if you've got your house in order, we'll give you actually extra money. And I don't know how that would work. Maybe you could fund more coaches, or they could fund scholarships to CIT or something for Carlow hurlers. But there needs to be some way to say, you're doing well, here's how we double down on that and make sure that this is now something that is sustainable.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very, very good idea. And counties doing well, especially kind of when it comes to the Leinster counties at the moment with huge populations, like when you look at the Meads and Kildares, there's definitely an incentive on that front, because they have the playing population to create something really special. Like Kildare and Meath, really, if they're looked after properly, should become not only Tier 1 counties on a regular basis, but should become on my power rankings, top 4 or 5 teams on a regular basis.
I would agree.
It shouldn't be the Mayos that should be up there every year. Really, if you look at population and resources, they're overachieving.
Who?
If you look at Mayo's population...
You say Mayo are overachieving? Are you taunting Mayo after they've just been beaten at home by Roscommon by saying they're overachieving?
We're looking at
what a troll.
Pure resource-based. Let's spin it another way.
Trolling with trollface.
They're underachieving. Let's put it that way.
I think everybody
let me just stop mentioning Mayo for this morning.
All right, reminder that we're live on the radio tonight from 7 o'clock on News Talk. Sean O'Brien's going to be in studio a little bit later on talking about the end of his Leinster career and potentially the end of his Ireland career, although maybe not, who knows, maybe the new Ireland coach comes in next year and decides that Sean O'Brien is exactly what he wants in his team for the Six Nations and for that transition into whatever comes next. So we'll see what Andy Farrell says. And a reminder, if you missed any of the show, you can watch it back on offtheball.com. We put up most of our long pieces on youtube.com/offtheball. If you hit the subscribe button on YouTube, then we'll let you know whenever we go live. And likewise, no harm to subscribe to all of our podcasts on the OTB Podcast Network as well. Just search OTB AM on your podcast app or Spotify, and remember to rate us on iTunes. That really helps with other people discovering the podcast too. So we're going to play out with this. We've been speaking with the diver Clare Cryan and the swimmers Brendan Hyland and Darragh Greene, who hope to represent Ireland at the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo. Have a look.
All right, so Tesco Ireland has announced a 2-year title sponsorship with Swim Ireland, who govern swimming, water polo and diving in Ireland. They will provide support at local and national level and to increase active national swimming participation levels. And of course, it is a huge year for aquatics in Ireland with the South Korean World Championships coming up as well. And I'm delighted to say that diver Clare Cryan and swimmers Darragh Greene and Brendan Hyland are with me in studio. You're very welcome, folks. How are things?
How's it going?
All good. So I mentioned South Korea there. All three of you are going to South Korea, right?
Yeah.
I'm very interested in this. So it's July. It's currently May, obviously, when we're recording this. And the idea of peaking at the right time is something that every sports person has to deal with. I'd be very keen to get all your different experiences in this. But say, for example, what are you doing right now to ensure that come July, you're in the peak version of yourself?
I've actually had a lot of this over here. So I've been to a few internationals, but never really done much, to be honest. But it was always a big issue, kind of. You know what I mean? I'd swim well in April in Dublin, and then I'd go abroad and I wouldn't have a clue what was going on. So our coach at the moment, I think it's just about doing enough work at the right times, and then just trusting yourself that you're working, and then come up to the big meet, you rest down, and then you're ready. But now you take confidence. Well, like myself and Darragh, I don't know how to dive in right now, but we both swam well, like both PB, like lifetime bests at Europeans in Glasgow. And that was the first time I'd ever done that at international. Like, I'd never actually done it on the most important one. So now, you take confidence from it, knowing that our coach Ben Hickson, he's got a good bit. He's got sus. Like,
how difficult was that to perform on the highest day? Was that a problem for you before?
That's what I was saying. I never thought it was. I was always debating whether it's me mentally, kind of. You know what I mean? Like being nervous. But I was always thinking, I don't think I'm nervous. So I think it's honestly the kind of physiological preparation. So like getting your body ready to perform on whatever 21st of July 2019, do you know what I mean? Rather than just kind of randomly and nearly fluking it. So and they have it through the whole system. Like we've got 1 trials in April in the aquatic centre. You have to qualify at that.
Yeah.
Whereas before it used to be kind of you could nominate 3 or 4, or you could just qualify anytime. So everyone was kind of just taking swings at it. Whereas but you have to learn how to be able to perform on the exact day. And you nearly see yourself fly up the rankings if you can do a personal best on the day World Championships. You'll move up because not everyone will do it.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting. So you say nerves wasn't the issue there. Is that because you don't suffer from nerves particularly, or is it because it's a sport where even if you're nervous, you can still perform to your peak ability?
Oh, no, nerves are massive, but I don't know. I always thought that's what I was saying. Obviously, you do get nervous, but I feel like over the years, I've kind of learned that they don't really overcome me a little bit. Like I'm sure everyone, from your experiences, you kind of learn like. And you just kind of, you realise, like as nervous as I get, I take confidence that I've never kind of cracked under it before.
Yeah.
So like before the box I will be absolutely, oh my God. But then I always say like nerves are good, it means you can do something special. That's
yeah, for sure. Claire, if we think about your sport, like if I'm standing at the top of a diving board, I'm going to be nervous, but I presume at this point nerves aren't an issue for you. Do you go along with that perhaps they can get to you?
Definitely, to the same extent that nerves are a good thing, and if you learn how to channel it, then it can help you perform, whereas like when it's your first few competitions and especially like your first major internationals, then you might think you know how to channel those nerves from your nationals and your lower level competitions, but when you're on that stage and it's a little bit different, it's how to control it then. And that's what these competitions are like. You've just got to keep doing them and you'll learn how to deal with that, but it's something that you can't really, you just learn from doing it. There's no way of training it almost than just competing.
Because the idea of controlling your nerves is a term that's bandied about so much, but when it comes to synchronised diving, it is so important, because ultimately if the nerves get the better of you, you might swim a little bit slower, or if you control your nerves really well, you might swim a bit faster. But ultimately, when you're actually up there with Oliver Dingley and you've got to essentially perform to the exact same pace or whatever it may be, you kind of want your nerves perfectly in check. So I don't know how you deal with that. Is that something that you've encountered before?
I guess with synchronised diving, it's different to be an individual. Like, you've got someone else to do the competition with. So we both have our own competition routines, which are probably very different. But before we go up on the board, like, we'll always, I don't know, like fist pump something, like get us in focus together. And then we just do our thing. Like, that's diving. Like, you just go and do another dive. It's what we always do. It's what we train day in, day out for, and hope that it works.
When did you know that partnership was going to be something that would work?
Me and Ollie were just trying it out. Like, mixed synchronised diving's a relatively new thing. And we were just trying it out in training one day, and our coach Damien, he was like, hang on, we could actually put some work into this and compete. And so we did our first international in Canada a couple of months ago and came third at that. So hopefully we'll have another good run in Worlds in July, and then we have Europeans in August as well. So
you just stumbled upon this, the synchronised diving, the first Irish medal at an international event was just by pure coincidence.
Well, no, we put some training into it, and Ollie's very good at adapting to me, because Ollie's obviously a lot stronger than I am, so it's hard for the guys to dive like less high, like dumb it down almost to be in sync with the girls. But I know that's the sport of mixed synchronised diving, I guess.
Do you prefer working as a team or as an individual?
I don't know. It's nice to have that, because neither of us have a synchro partner for like men's or women's, so it's nice to mix it up a little bit. It's very different, so it's almost like doing a different event completely.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Darragh, you're very welcome as well. It's like the idea of being part of a swim team. Like, I mean, there was a picture of the team that's about to go to South Korea published on the Swim Ireland website there recently, and there's a lot of you. Like, I mean, when it comes down to all the swim teams, there is a huge crew of you. There's great camaraderie, I suppose, but ultimately when you're in the pool, it's just you, it's just on your own, and I guess that suits a lot of people very well. Is your psychology made up in a certain way where you like to have everything controlled by yourself, and ultimately it's how you perform that'll determine whether or not you get to the final or whether or not you medal?
Yeah, so like as with the new programme and stuff, I'm working along with Ben and stuff. We've been, as Bren was saying, like pretty much taught to perform on the day, but the only thing we can control is ourselves. So like we can't control what anyone else does, so we're focused on ourselves and trying to do. Our number one goal is to do a lifetime best on the day. So, and then that will hopefully get us through the rounds. So that's one thing that we look at or are hoping to do in South Korea first day, because everyone's entitled to one swim and you have to earn the rest.
So is your singular goal in South Korea swim the best you've ever swam, get that lifetime best?
Yeah. So if I do a lifetime best, that's a pre-validation to Tokyo. So. And then hopefully it's on to the semi-final and then final.
I was just looking at kind of what Swim Ireland has written about, especially you two guys, over the past couple of weeks, and I see that the two of you are doing swim clinics at the moment, or have been for the last couple of weeks. How important is that kind of inspiring the next generation, or showing them that the heights you can reach in swimming in this country is actually a really, really strong level, internationally strong?
I think they're great. We're always saying, like, when I was swimming for years, like, but I remember when I was about 10, and I remember looking up at the lads that were, I don't even know if they're 24 now, but they were older than me, like, and I remember being like, just absolutely wow. And I was just saying that we really should be trying to give back, because like there are kids that look up to us, and we've so much, like, from our journey, so much experience, kind of thing, that we can just give so much back to them. So it was great though. We got a good few. I think it was like 24 spots we Swim Ireland kind of organised to give out, but the kids loved it, like, and we just took a session, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, it was
just went through all our drills and stuff.
Yeah, and just kind of like swimming when is a big dropout sport, it has been the last few years. Like, as swimmers grow up, like, they kind of get that lull of, oh, do I continue on with it? Because it is a huge dedication compared to other sports that train once, twice a week and have a game every weekend. Well, swimming, you're training 6 days a week to being able to compete nearly once a month if you're lucky. Like, so I try to just tell them that like I only started like kind of hitting my peak in my only the last year or two kind of thing. Like it was like I wasn't near as good as a junior whatsoever compared to Bren and them who have been in the main team. So I've only started to hit my stride the last few years.
And was it always swimming, or like did you know that it was going to come right for you eventually at that point?
It was kind of a weird one. I broke my leg in transition year, and the first sport I did every sport from Gaelic, soccer and that, but swimming was the first sport I was obviously able to get back into doing because it's non-contact with the ground or anything like that, so that was the first thing, and then I just continued on with it when I could see actually I could get a scholarship and then see what happens then. Like,
yeah, for sure. So obviously the scholarship comes. Like, it's interesting what you mentioned there, and I'd be keen to get your take on that as well, Brendan. Like the idea of swimming being kind of a sport with a huge dropout rate, because it's a huge participation sport, but actually competing in swimming or any aquatic sport really at a competitive level, there has to be that dropout rate because ultimately you get to such a high level and you can't compete any longer. Like, is there something that we could be looking at differently, that people who have that competitive urge and want to swim can do stuff? Because ultimately I guess they get into triathlons and things like that as well.
Not really. I feel like obviously it's a hard one, but I kind of feel like, so when we would have been kids, the kind of standard of Irish swimming, it wasn't as kind of, I don't know, there seems to be more promise now. I don't know, you could check results now and Premier on, but I feel like there's a bit more of a buzz around it. I feel like kids could be more kind of inspired that they could be, like, you know what I mean, a professional swimmer, go to the Olympics, win medals and stuff. Whereas, like, I feel like back in the day, people would have looked up and been like, sure, what are the chances of me being, first of all, the best in Ireland, and then even if the best in Ireland isn't going to make it further, so I feel like it's getting more encouraging now for kids looking up and seeing there's, do you know what I mean, like there's us three and then there's 10 others going to South Korea for the World Championships, and hopefully we perform and stuff.
Was that your dream to swim in the Olympics? Was it a singular focus?
Yeah, I kind of, see, my family are all kind of boxers. And,
are they, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know, Patrick, Hyland.
Yeah.
Do you know? Yeah.
Well, like the Hyland family, of course.
Yeah, but they, I don't know, my mum didn't want me to be a boxer, so anyway, I was swimming, but I kind of always, I remember it was like about 2004, I remember watching Michael Phelps on the telly, and that was kind of, and obviously I was swimming at the time, I went, right, that's me, I'd love to do that. But it wasn't until I was about, like I said, junior, but I was pretty quiet until I was about 18, like, and then all of a sudden it became kind of like a goal rather than just like a random dream that was in my head of the Olympics, do you know what I mean? Did
you ever lace up a pair of gloves yourself?
I actually haven't. No, I've trained with them now. I've never been in a boxing fight, and I really should be getting around to it. Everyone has this like, oh, your family are boxers. Yeah, I've never boxed, but I should really be. I've trained with them though.
I can't imagine it does you any harm, the cross-pollination of skills. I'm not sure if you'd actually be boxing the head off anybody in the pool, but like, I mean, the eye-hand coordination.
I think I got a lot of kind of mental toughness from training with them, even though it was like, you know what I mean, the odd weeks in the summer, like, but they're very tough. Like, that's what my dad used to always kind of say. He was like, no matter how hard that 200 butterfly gets, imagine someone punching the head off you during it, like, that's how hard it can be harder, like, do you know what I mean? I don't know, that's kind of how I think about it. And I took a lot of inspiration from all them, like, they were deadly, like, but
you really, I always find it so fascinating, the singular nature of either being a diver or being a swimmer, but if you kind of put on top of that the idea of being a combat sports performer as well on top of that, like, I just, the team dynamic kind of helps things so much more, that you have to have so much mental strength to actually survive in your game, but then also to survive in your game and also get punched in the face as a singular athlete as well. The boxing fraternity really have that mental toughness, which you can teach, but you kind of have to learn as well.
Yeah, it is. It's different kettle of fish. Different, what I can know, phrase, kettle of fish.
Yeah, that's the one.
But I know they're mad. Like, that's what I would say. Like, just from being around them and all that. I do think it stood to me a lot. Like, I think that's kind of why I've kind of come through as a reasonably good swimmer. Like, just the whole toughness of it. They're mad. Like, when you're training with them, it's even the ones who aren't particularly good or skillful. They're just so tough. Like, and that's why I suppose a lot of them, like, tough lads off the street, come in and they kind of get pointed the right direction. That's usually what makes the best athletes and stuff. But there's a few. I feel like every international athlete at the top has a bit of mental toughness.
Yeah.
Like, I train with him, he's an animal. But like, I feel like we could all, maybe skills, whatever, but I feel like every athlete that gets near the top has a good bit of toughness about them. Like,
Where does your toughness come from, Claire? Is it a cross-pollination of sport, or does it come from somewhere else?
I don't know. I think it's just that resilience of training for however many years we've been doing it. It's not necessarily the competition that creates that mental toughness, but it's the training. And I mean, my training's hard, but in a completely different way to theirs is. But, you know, you go in training twice a day, 6 days a week, whatever, and you've got to be tough to do that. Like, you're tired, but no one cares. You keep going. Like, it doesn't matter if you're tired. You've got a job, you've got to train, you've got to do this many dives today, and you get on with it. So.
When did you realise that? Was it like that you're speaking there, kind of like how a coach, I'd imagine, has spoken to you in the past, or how it's spoken to any athlete in the past?
I guess when you want something enough yourself, then you don't need to be told that. You want that for yourself. So, you know, your coach is there and they're pushing you, because on some days you need it, but they're not there to get you out of bed in the morning. Like, you get up yourself because you want to be there, and you're doing that training for yourself at the end of the day. So.
You're based in Sheffield, am I right in saying that, for some of your year?
Yeah, and Dublin. Like, I live here, but my old club's there, so I switch between the two.
When it comes to kind of seeing, like we mentioned swim clinics there, and kind of what is hopefully the growing interest in Irish swimming at the moment, because it's a great participation sport, are you noticing the same over here when it comes to diving? I know Ollie's been in studio before and says that it's starting to take off nicely at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely hard because there's not as many pools, there's not as many facilities for it, but I think diving's getting more well known, and like the cliff diving on last weekend in Dunleary had like, I think they said 80,000 spectators, which is great. Like, if that amount of people are interested in watching diving there, then, you know, hopefully more people will look into where they can go diving and stuff like that, because, you know, swimming's not for everyone. Like, I couldn't swim when I started, but I loved being in the water. So it's just that different opportunity, I guess.
It's weird, there's so many divers who say they actually struggle with the swimming part of it.
Well, you know, you only have to get like 5 metres, like 2 metres up, 2 metres to the side, and you're sorted. Yeah,
it is a good point, to be fair. It's not actually swimming for too long. Well, the very best of luck to the three of you this summer. It's a big couple of months, and we're right behind you. As I said at the start, Tesco Ireland has announced a 2-year title sponsorship of Swim Ireland, who govern swimming, water polo and diving in Ireland. They'll provide support at a local and national level, and to increase active national swimming participation levels. Claire, Darragh and Brendan, thanks a million for popping in.
Cheers, thanks so much.